everyone. Welcome back. Hope everyone's doing good. We are here again with love, money, and rock and roll. So far, there's been kind of love, not much rock and roll, not really any money, and a lot of danger. A lot of my life is in danger, kind of thing. But hopefully, with this playthrough, with this session, we'll uncover like what this project is, what my character's parents did, and why are people trying to take me out. And maybe we'll fall in love with someone, who knows. But yeah, I'm ready for another day of this, so let's begin. It was hard to say if I had convinced Himitsu, or if I had convinced Himitsu, but I certainly hadn't convinced myself. The first lesson had already started, but Catherine was yet to show up. Hang on, let me check something. Okay, I think everyone's working. Everything is working. I guess I still found it hard to believe that she was connected to the deaths of my parents. Maybe Katya was also a victim in a sense. The only way to figure that out was to talk to her directly. I could probably even tell her about my conversation with Ichinose, without naming names, of course. But to do that, I had to find her. Kyosuke approached me during the break. Listen, Nick. He began hesitantly. I understand this isn't the best time, and you probably got other stuff on your mind, but I wanted to ask you about something. Go ahead. Conversation with Kyosuke would be fun, at least. Himitsu-chan has a friend, Suzuhara. For some reason, he blushed, his eyes darting around the classroom as if looking for support. Who? Well, you know. Kyosuke leaned to me and whispered, Saya-chan. Oh, she's got a surname, too? I sniffed. Stop teasing, Nick. It's a matter of life and death. Wait, let me guess. You want me to introduce you? I was barely holding back laughter. To be honest, I don't think she's your best choice. Try our biology teacher. She's only, 70? I don't want anything like that. And why are you asking? Because Kyosuke seemed to get mad and hissed. And you call yourself a friend. Oh, come on. I smiled in good nature and asked, Still, how did she manage to catch your eye? She seemed to be as far from your 2D goddesses as they come. Plus, I've talked to her a couple of times, and I think you should know that even Iwamura is more cordial. By the way, Kagomi wasn't in class. Previously, I hadn't paid attention to her at all, but for a class rep, she seemed to be skipping a lot. No, really, what do you see in her? You're going to keep making fun of me. You started it. Although maybe Kyosuke thought Saya was his only option. In that case, my words must have stung even more. For many years now, he'd seen Himitsu follow me around like a pet. God forgive me. Pretty much pampering me. Kyosuke... Okay, I think I'm still alive. Computer is acting funny again. Okay, we're good, I think, hopefully. Never gave me any reason to believe he was envious, but in a way, it was obvious. Any lonely guy would feel the same in his place. Easy for you to say. You got Himitsu-chan, Catherine-san. You shouldn't have brought Catherine into this. Who do you think I am? I said coldly. What does Catherine have to do with it? Or do you think we should be in a relationship by default because we used to be? Exactly, used to. It doesn't give you the right to laugh at. He fell silent and screwed up his face. Whatever, forget it. Maybe you and Saya would make a good pair. I turned away from Kyosuke. With a heavy sigh and his head low, he returned to his desk. Telling Himitsu about this conversation would most likely be a bad idea. Although, I definitely couldn't be more polite. What did the others think, I wonder? Kyosuke wasn't the only one who knew we used to be together. They simply weren't letting me forget about it. And now was the worst moment for it. I had more important problems. However, the tugging feeling of longing captured me whole with renewed strength. Unfortunately, the human emotions would separate from logic, often even in spite of it. They work when you need them least. How could I talk to Catherine when the only thing I was capable of thinking about was my broken arm? It was like trying to eat a kilo of oranges with a citrus allergy. Katya didn't come to the second lesson either. Yesterday she had been picked up by a car, and today she didn't show up in school at all? I was worried about her and couldn't do anything about it. The more I thought about everything that had happened, the more I worried I got. It was all the same as then a year and a half ago. At first I had simply been shocked, broken, and crushed by her actions, but then came the anger. I blamed Catherine, even hated her, but soon enough, as is typical for me, started to look for reason in myself. No, not like that. I wasn't looking for reasons or trying to calmly analyze the situation. I was simply blaming myself. And now, too, the more I thought, the more I blamed myself specifically. In the end, I couldn't bear it any longer and fled home after my second class. Well, fudge. I walked the street at a measured pace, unable to calm myself down. As if dragging an incredibly heavy cart of feelings and worries behind me, I was most likely just afraid of what I could learn. Best case scenario, she left for the States. Worst case, she hates me again. The dial tone in the receiver grated my ear, but no one was answering. What did I even think? She'd be home. Maybe she was simply taking a walk, or sitting in a cafe, or... Ah, damn it! I dialed the number I knew by heart again and again, but unalterably the only response I got was the calm, emotionless dial tone. What if she simply didn't want to pick up? Oh no, I'm yawning a lot. That's not good. That was totally possible. Then I had to go to her, immediately now. I quickly slipped on my sneakers and froze. What about my surveillance? They most likely knew much more about the Winters family than I did, but wouldn't my feverish floundering arouse fresh suspicion? On the other hand, what? I couldn't just visit a classmate? Stay home, go to Catherine. I kind of want to figure out, why people are after me. But I also want to do the Catherine route some other time. So I'll just stay home. I was attacked by a strange apathy. I had no strength to move or make any decisions. Any action deemed pointless. Looking for Catherine, going to her place. Things would either work themselves out or they wouldn't. I was sitting in a stupor for a good half an hour before someone rang the door. Maybe it was Katya. What if she came to me? I excitedly rushed to open it. It was just Himitsu at my doorstep, and all of my excitement immediately evaporated. What are you ringing for? I asked gloomily. I don't know. She seemed agitated. So why are you here? Nico-kun. Why aren't you at school? I saw you leave, and so I was worried. All right, let's go inside. We walked to my room. Himitsu sat down on the bed, not too far from me, and asked, Did something happen? Why did you leave school? You said yourself we should act normal. Are you saying skipping school isn't normal for me? I smirked. Nico-kun, you know what I mean. Of course I knew, goddammit. But I couldn't exactly tell Himitsu that I had spent the entire day thinking about Catherine and went home to call her. Now when we had seemingly just made up, I had a panic attack. I finally came up with an answer. Wanted to be away from other people in a familiar place. And here I was, lying to her again. Even if it was just for her own good, as I saw it. And how are you feeling now? Judging by your face, she believed me. Why? Who knows? Perhaps Himitsu simply couldn't imagine I would lie about this. It was about my health after all. Better, thank you. Should I bring you something? If you happen upon some whiskey. Nico-kun, I'm serious. Everything's fine, I just needed to calm down. I approached and sat down next to her. Hope they won't punish you for skipping. They could call you home, you know. Calling mine doesn't exactly do much. I asked to leave. I said I had a stomach ache. You've got it nice. You have it nice, too, if you thought about your future even a little. She finally smiled. Well, that's kind of the only thing I've been thinking about lately. Himitsu gave me a questioning look about whether I'll have one at all. She covered my hands with hers and leaned her head against my shoulder. Everything will be all right. And to think that just a minute ago my mind was fully occupied by Catherine. That would mean I was cheating on her with Himitsu. Or Himitsu with her. Mentally, I suddenly grew scared as if seized by a real panic attack. I carefully stood up from the bed and walked across the room. If I learn something new, I'll tell you right away. All right, she said seriously. Should we eat? Isn't it too early? Aren't you hungry? Not really, maybe later. The only thing I wanted at the moment was to be alone with myself. Himitsu kept silent for a while, then said, "Nico-kun, you're withdrawing into yourself and hiding something. Do you think that will make everything better? Do you think it'll do you any good?" "I'm not withdrawing anywhere." Although after a glance into her sad eyes, I couldn't keep lying. "Fine, I am, but I need to." "At least for now, please just understand and don't argue. I can't understand what you're doing to yourself. What am I doing to myself? All this?" She responded uncertainly, pursing her lips and turned away. "Then I don't understand what you don't understand. Caddy-chan, the alcohol, the depression, you're slowly killing yourself." She looked at me with a plea in her eyes. "If not for yourself, then at least for me," she added in a whisper. I didn't know how to respond. Of course she was right. There wasn't even any point in arguing. My constant fights with Himitsu, what were they all for? What was I trying to achieve? What was I trying to prove, and to who? I simply found it hard to acknowledge my own wrongs, hard to decide on a specific course of action, hard to make a choice. But if only I was the one suffering for it. I understand, I do, but now just isn't a good time. Need to deal with this all by myself, otherwise. So we can move on with our lives. You say we, but where is us? Has it ever existed? Himitsu wrung her hands in pain and looked ready to burst into tears. I don't want to continue this meaningless argument because I've said everything there is to say. Despite everything, I still behave like a complete asshole. To agree with her now was to give up everything familiar, give up Catherine. But I still wouldn't be able to keep my feet in both worlds. When I figure it all out, I felt myself lacking air. When I figure it all out, then what? What'll happen? Will everything return to normal? Was I ready to promise her that? Or would it be a lie? A false hope that would end up finally breaking Himitsu? I'll figure it all out. For now I just need to be alone to think. Then I'll go, she said hollowly. It seemed that wasn't how Himitsu had wanted this conversation to end. No, I'll go. I want to get some fresh air. As fresh as it could be in Tokyo. I'll be waiting. That's not necessary. Maybe, but I will. She tried to pretend everything was fine, everything was normal. I felt even more ashamed, but I really couldn't keep lying to both of them. I probably shouldn't have had this conversation. I should have gone to Catherine right away. About an hour later, I appeared near her house. I wasn't even sure if it was intentional. I felt like I was on autopilot, but I had to do what I had to do. Himitsu probably wouldn't be happy if she knew I was here at the entrance to Catherine's house. I pressed the intercom button. I had to do it twice more before getting a response. "Who is it?" "It's me. We need to talk." There was an unmistakable heavy sigh from the other end of the line, but the door did open. Going up in the elevator, I had no expectation of this ending well. Sure, I could have prepared it in advance, but that wasn't like me at all. "Oh, hello." Katya greeted me coldly and let me into the apartment. "Are you okay? Does it look like I'm not?" "No, you just haven't been to school today. You're perceptive. We're in the same class." I frowned. If that was sarcasm, it was artless, not like Catherine at all. "Oh, yes, we are. How unfortunate," she said phlegmatically. Now that was better. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "We need to talk." After these words, I realized that I knew what to say and how to say it. Thanks for the note. It cost me a few sleepless nights and a bunch of nerves. "What are you talking about?" Catherine tried to look disinterested, but I quickly noticed that something about her changed. "You know what I'm talking about. By the way, thank you for inviting me into your home. I just wanted to ask, where did that notebook on your desk come from? The one with someone else's handwriting?" Katya walked to the window, jerked aside the curtain, and looked out onto the street. She stayed silent for quite a while. I internally celebrated, confident that I'd driven her into a corner. Finally, she'd have to tell the truth. Borrowed it from a classmate to copy their work. Catherine finally said in a calm voice, turning to me. There was no surprise in her eyes, no fear, no worry or dread. Only the same weariness and a light flare of arrogance. "Aren't you quick?" She smirked. "What? But... So you aren't trying to hide that you wrote that note?" I wasn't exactly going to shout it from the rooftops, but what's there to hide? Everything seems fairly obvious to me. To you? I'm even surprised that you've only decided to talk about it now. Is this a joke or something? The fur is this? How was I supposed to guess? And even if... I made an effort to keep myself from completely flying off the handle. Why didn't you just tell me? You could have simply talked to me. Everything is simple to you. Catherine folded her arms over her chest and went silent. What are you trying to achieve? You did read the note. Emotions finally prevailed and Katya winced. Maybe you wouldn't have guessed. It took you a while. Katya, this isn't a game. Stop. She was about to flare up, but then didn't. What do you know? Catherine spent some time deciding how to answer. Not that much. When we returned to Japan on the very first day, I overheard my mother talking on the phone. She was having a conversation with someone about you and your parents. And the conversation was heated. It seemed to me like Mom was threatened. You didn't tell me anything about it? Just left a note? A note, Katya? A note with a bunch of mistakes? Stop yelling at me! I laughed in exhaustion. But now I was sure that Ichinose had been talking about Mrs. Winters yesterday. And you're not all that surprised that you came back to Japan when all this began? This what? I ignored her question. Maybe Catherine really wasn't aware of everything that had happened to me, happening into me life lately. To me life. Not surprised that your mother would talk with someone about my parents who, do keep in mind, have been dead for 1.5 years now. What was I supposed to do? I talked to Mom. She said not to get involved, that it's none of my business. You know, I even agree with her. It's not your business. It's my business. Most surprisingly, I wasn't angry with her at all. I was sure Catherine was speaking the truth. The note thing? All in all, it was quite like her. Still wanted to stand my ground in the end. Why should I believe you now? Have I lied to you? In her eyes I could see a plea of an unexpected meekness. I stumbled and continued quieter. Don't try to deflect. Hiding things from me or deceiving me, what's the difference? Someone may very well want to kill me. Katya stood with her back against the wall, her head lowered. Can you tell me what exactly that conversation was about in as much detail as possible? I only heard what Mom said. What does it have to do with his parents? They're long dead. Why should we do it? If you're that interested, work on him yourself. Your mom's got one hell of a job. What did you say she was? A diplomat? Nick, that's all I know, I swear. It seemed like that was the first time she'd called me by my name since her return. So what am I supposed to do now? Maybe we should go to your mother together? No! She immediately grew more agitated. Why do you think she's to blame? What if she's also in danger? The thought hadn't crossed my mind. Not that it had any reason to. Plus I didn't know Mrs. Winters after all. She absolutely did not give the impression of a person who would be easily intimidated. So what do you actually know about your mother's work? I can't tell you anything you don't already know, even if she's connected to something. Catherine stopped, clearly choosing her words carefully. Like that? I don't know anything about it. All I can tell you for sure is that she works at the embassy. I see. Then came the long, painful silence. Maybe you'd like some tea? She asked in a tone that made me think of Himitsu. Tea? I laughed. You think this is the right time for tea? It's not even 5 o'clock. Katya smiled. Aside from the whole spy business, for a moment our relationship almost returned to normal. I no longer felt like a second-class citizen, and Catherine had dropped her disgusting arrogance. It wasn't in my character to be led around, much less put up with this sort of attitude. However, the change appeared to be too sudden. We simply didn't know what to talk about next. By the way, I finally found something. Did a car pick you up from school yesterday? Yeah. What gives? They gave Mom a personal order. So you're using a diplomatic vehicle for personal gain? What else am I supposed to do? If I've been brought to this country by force again, I should at least indulge myself. Aren't you an opportunist, Miss Winters? Katya laughed, and her laugh even sounded genuine. Are you going to school tomorrow? The smile immediately disappeared from her face. Nick, do you think we should have met at all? Shouldn't have met? Maybe then my mother's phone call wouldn't have happened either. That's not what it's about at all. Who knows? After all, life is a series of coincidences. I gave Katya a long look, trying to figure out what she was implying, but her face remained unreadable. So I'll see you tomorrow? Perhaps. She answered ambiguously and went to the hallway to see me off. We shouldn't have met at all. What was she talking about? I knew the meaning of the words themselves, but I couldn't understand what Catherine meant by them. Was it just an idle remark that our lives couldn't have gone differently? I guess that without her my life would have been easier. A statement that she regrets that we met. I was aimlessly wandering the central part of Tokyo, and couldn't think about anything else. The situation with the KGB and Kobayashi Corporation was seemingly more important right now, and so were that damn note and Catherine's mother. But over and over, the words "we shouldn't have met at all" repeated in my head. I guess I just couldn't entirely believe that Katya really didn't want anything to do with me anymore. Dang. This is nice. Nice view here. Night was slowly descending upon the city. It was time to admit that Catherine had been a thing in itself. For me, a person I perceived separately from the rest of the world, separately even from the real her. I was of course talking about the vision of Catherine that had formed in my inflamed mind. How many times in the past year and a half had I argued with it, begged it, hated it, worshipped it? That was exactly why I was finding it so hard to admit to myself that Katya was just a human being, with her own problems and flaws, fears and aspirations, sympathies and antipathies. Or to put it in a few words, she wasn't just black and white, wasn't Hegel's absolute. Otherwise there would have been a note, wouldn't even have been a conversation between us. However, my feelings toward Catherine weren't my only problem at the moment. For an hour I had been feeling I was being watched. Sure, I had to expect that, but had to be ready for it. But I would at least like to know who exactly was watching. The Russians, the Japanese, maybe even the Americans. I picked up my pace and headed home. As she had promised, Himitsu was waiting for me inside. Some brew of unspecified composition stood atop the stove, while she herself was sitting at the table, reading a book. "Nico-kun, what took you so long?" Kind of worked out this way. "Where have you been?" Surprisingly, I was glad to return to these questions, glad to come back home to this dysfunctional form of family. I was probably just too tired today and wanted some peace and stability, and there was nothing more stable than Himitsu in my life. I was just walking, thinking, but if I told her about my conversation with Catherine, that wouldn't make things any more stable, even though I had decided not to lie to Himitsu anymore. Just for today. Sometimes it helps, you know. It would help you more to talk to people more often. I do. Do you? To who? I talk to you. That wasn't a very convincing statement. To Kyosuke, to Michael, to Catherine? I lowered my head apologetically and sat across from her. To teachers at school. Luckily, Himitsu didn't react in any way and started to set the table. Everything turned out to be extraordinarily delicious. I was eating enthusiastically. Himitsu was looking at me with a smile on her face. "Walked a lot, worked up an appetite," I said merrily. "Well, finally some good news. What's good about it? Want me to get fat? At least not for the next 10 to 15 years. If I keep eating like this." "Nico-kun," she laughed. "Tomorrow's already Wednesday." When we finished dinner, Himitsu brewed tea and laid out some candies on the table that seemed to have come out of nowhere. Polyat, Mishki Vilesu, and some others. Soviet candies. Imported. Where did she even get them? A gust of cold wind came from the outside. She shivered, and I quickly closed the door. As the kitchen grew warmer, so did my heart, from the hot tea, the sweet chocolate, the soft light of the incandescent lamp, and Himitsu's dreamy eyes. It's been a while since we had an evening like this, peaceful and kind. The people watching me would definitely leave this house alone, at least for today. Catherine could wait until tomorrow, and my angst-racked soul could finally get some rest. And all that would have been impossible without Himitsu. Not only did she create comfort around herself, not only did she bring peace and order to my life, but she also served as the pillar that supported it all. I could take her attitude, take everything she did for granted, but that didn't change anything. Without Himitsu, my life would have been very different. How different exactly? That I did not want to think about right now. Where did you get the candies? Dad brought them from work. Your dad brought them? Where did he get them? I don't know. What does it matter? Are they tasty, like in your childhood? To be honest, I didn't even vaguely remember the taste of those candies from my childhood, but I simply had no right to upset Himitsu. Of course, I mean they're the same candies. It's, well, logical. I can tell when you're not telling the truth. Well, that didn't work out. Come on, I don't remember what I ate for breakfast, and you're asking about something that happened 10 years ago. Some things you remember for a lifetime. Hey, Mafia babe. What's up? How you doing today? Welcome to the stream. You're just in time. We're talking with Himitsu right now. Didn't see the time. Oh no. It's fine, don't worry. I'm just glad you're here. How have you been today? I'm surviving. Playing everyone's favorite visual novel. Everyone's favorite love visual novel. And for me, Soviet Candies isn't one of them. If only I were you. What then? You'd write about it in your diary? Maybe you do. I teased. I bet you've got an entire section for candies in there. Maybe. What's bad about that? Nothing. Nothing at all. I hemmed and threw another candy into my mouth. By the way, Mafia Babe, remember before when we thought Catherine wrote the note? Well, that has been confirmed. Catherine did write the note. She confessed it herself. In fact, it's quite cute. You could do with writing some things down, too. How do you know I don't? Maybe you've got a dossier on every single one of you. Uh-oh, yeah. So we'll see what happens now, huh? We're in the third streams and things are gonna get crazy, I bet. And maybe we'll find love, finally, in this game. Do you? And what does it say about me? Then you like candies and soon you'll be fat like a Colo bulk. Nico-kun! She tried to throw a candy wrapper at me, but halfway through its flight it entered an uncontrollable nosedive and crashed. It also says I'm very grateful to you for everything, and that I love you very much. I got too emotional and couldn't stop. A 60 stream streak. Mafia Babe, you are insane, you know that? I don't think I've ever seen a streak that high before. Well, flippin' floopin' done. Himitsu didn't respond, just looked at me with hopeful eyes. This oppressive silence covered us for a while. I was tense on pins and needles. What was I supposed to say or do next? Suddenly, the unnaturally loud sound of a car horn came from the street. She jumped. Must be late now. Got into 80 streams before. 80 streams, huh? I wonder who else. Who else, I wonder? But no, I'm glad you've attended 60 of these streams. Possibly even more. I quickly blurted out, afraid of what could happen between us next. Yes! Himitsu said, upset. Till tomorrow, then. Till tomorrow! I didn't even have to clarify what would happen tomorrow. She would come and wake me up, like every other day. I thought I wouldn't be able to fall asleep quickly, was sure that the dark thoughts wouldn't retreat easily, but the slumber I desired came almost immediately. Alright, good night. Good night, everyone. See you later. Oh, it's the morning. Mafia Babe, you're first. You're the first one here. Woo! Sometimes a dream is just a dream. In this case, however, it was a disease retrospected on recent events. I was chasing Catherine while she was running away, yet constantly turning around, smiling, waving at me, and shouting something. Her words were carried away by the wind, and only her eyes shone and lips moved in silent labor. Nico-kun! I started to hear behind me. Nico-kun! The voice was becoming ever clearer. Himitsu was chasing me. She didn't look angry, but rather sad and weary. Where was I running to? After or from who? In a dream you move easily, effortlessly, as if floating immediately, gaining unprecedented speed without getting strained or tired. As if standing on an escalator as it rushes ahead. It takes you up or brings you down, depending on the point of view. A dream. I'm in a dream. I opened my eyes and immediately realized it was early in the morning. This happens sometimes. You don't need to glance at the clock or look outside. Your own body gives a signal that it hasn't yet to fully recover. The heavy head, the puffy eyes, the dry horrors. I knew these symptoms all too well. Except I hadn't been drinking yesterday. I got the feeling that sleeping the rest of the time I had left wasn't the best idea. The Catherine from the dream seemed to have stopped, and I finally managed to hear what she was shouting. We shouldn't have met at all. Have met. I rolled to the other side. The KGB, the Japanese, the project, Kobayashi Corporation, even my parents' death. If all that hadn't happened, Catherine would have still remained in my life. Moreover, she would have remained even had she had not returned to Japan. If not in my life, then in my heart. If not in my heart, then in my neurons of my brain and internal glands. The mechanisms of romantic love, might be of interest to an outside observer, a scientist looking at the problem as a matter of human psychology. But a man sick with smallpox would be more interested in how hard he had managed to catch it so late into the 20th century that its pathomechanisms. A cup of hot tea woke me up. I seem to recall that this pack hadn't been here before. Could Himitsu have brought it? Himitsu! She was about to come wake me up. How surprised she'd be to see, except I didn't want her to see me at all. Not today, not right now. Perhaps yesterday had gone a bit better than I could have expected. Perhaps I had reason to hope that my life would get better, at least in some respects. But now I'd woken up and it started all over again. She can't see me like this. I was absolutely positive that she would realize everything right away. I felt naked, with my feelings exposed, defenseless before the outside world. And so I ran! I left the house and simply walked wherever my feet would take me. Ah! My pace wasn't particularly fast, but not slow either. I watched the road and the traffic lights, even avoided running into people. But it was all done on autopilot. My mind was elsewhere. I just think I'm going for a run. I think that's all that's happening, Mafia Babe. Or maybe something big is happening. Maybe the aliens are going to get me. Maybe in the dream where I was chasing Catherine. Chasing with full understanding that I would never catch her. Life can be a strange thing. Katya lived just a couple kilometers away from here. Here, I could just go and ring her doorbell. Even if it was still too early and she was asleep, I could scale the fire escape and climb into her window. And then I could tell her everything I wanted to say. With beautiful words, elegant phrases, genuinely and passionately. And she would listen to me and understand, and forgive me. What the hell? Why should I feel guilty about her? I whispered quietly, or so I thought. You'll be fine before the wedding. Came a snide comment from some old lady as she deftly slipped under my arm. I stumbled away, startled, and picked up my pace. Ooh, new area, Mafia Babe. Look at this. This is quite nice. Soon I found myself in the park. It had been a while since last came here. I used to go here with Katya. She used to say this was the only place in the city where we could be alone. Or maybe she didn't, and I just assumed that's what she thought. Catherine never liked to publicly show her feelings, and sometimes it even seemed like she was embarrassed that someone would see us together. The park itself was more or less a classical Japanese garden. I always thought that in a way nature was the same everywhere. Sure, Earth had different climates. Some trees would grow on one continent, but completely refuse to take root on another. But in general, it was the same vegetation, the same oil, the same murmuring streams. Maybe that was because we rarely perceive nature as something discrete. We may often think about the age of a particular tree, but no one counts the blades of grass in a meadow or the grains of sand at a beach. Neither is a plucked flower perceived by us as the end of a separate biological entity. It's just a process. It will wither, rot, and turn into something new. I walked into our favorite gazebo and sat down on the bench. Rare yellowish leaves floated back and forth on the small lake. Here in the forest, you could say, the arrival of autumn wasn't as apparent, even though the temperature was a couple of degrees lower than in the city. Probably wasn't used to summer like warmth in the middle of September. What was the weather then, I wondered? It had been 2 years. 2 years, is that a lot for plants? What about century-old oaks? What about me? I sank into my memories. My first summer in high school had ended. To be honest, I no longer remember what I felt, strived for at the time. Only then was I simpler, more naive. It was a normal school day. Fundamentally, our high school differed from its middle counterpart only in name and when it was located on the same grounds. I knew many of the students. We had been in the same class before. Many Japanese schools changed students between classes each year, which is meant to promote interpersonal skills and collectivism. That's interesting, ain't it? Ain't it? Besides, my good chubby friend Kyosuke was sitting next to me. Don't you think it's weird we ended up in the same class however many times now? Are you implying that it's not a coincidence? You made one of those grids that practically scream, "Come on, ask me what I mean." I'm just stating a fact. Because if I thought you arranged it somehow, I'd start to feel weird, scared even. Why me exactly? Who else could it be? He huffily mumbled something in response. I think we've got a nice class here. I looked around the classroom, but my eyes didn't linger on anyone in particular. Probably because I didn't have any particular ties to any of them. What do you think about? He moved closer to me and whispered, "The girls?" Well, I don't really know. I'd lie if I said I didn't think about it. Any normal guy my age does. But thoughts were where it ended. It was hard for me to even imagine myself next to someone other than Himitsu. Even though I didn't think about her that way either. If you were to rank them, who would get first place? Ratings are your thing. Piss off. I cracked back in good nature. You're obviously hiding something. Why would I be hiding something? Fine, I'll start then. What do you think about... He raised his finger and started to run it around the classroom, as if choosing a toy in a shop window. Winter sun, let's say. Catherine was sitting behind the front desk, her back turned to us, her long hair so smoothly that it resembled a frozen waterfall, although coldness was also inherent to her character. At least that's how it seemed to me. I don't really know. Absolutely did know. If I were to answer Kyosuke's question seriously, which I would never, Catherine Winters would be at the top of my list. Why? You're both foreigners. Don't you think that's a bit chauvinistic? What? I said the last word in English because I read it in some sci-fi novel and simply didn't know how to say it in Japanese. Apparently the vocabulary of the heroes in Kyosuke's manga was a bit poor. I'm calling you a dickweed. Did you realize that your reaction is a little suspicious? Fine, what do you want to hear? Rate her out of 10. Let's say 7. So low? He flung his arms up disappointingly. What, should I give a 10 to each and every one of them? Having a top score wouldn't mean shit then. We're not in first grade when everyone gets A's in art class. I didn't get any A's. You're a different story. Talking about normal people. Oh, is that so? Should I pass your score over to Miss Winters then? He stood up from a chair and theoretically slowly. What are you doing? Come and sit down. Calm down and sit. Of course I didn't believe that Kyosuke really intended to do that. First and foremost, I didn't believe he had the courage. Scared, are you? I'm really not. Just why? Let's call it putting your personal life in order. Otherwise you'll be alone forever. Look who's talking. Also, did you think to ask her for her opinion first? Well, you are quite the guy, the cock of the wall. He grinned and finally sat back down. When you're the one saying that, it just sounds wrong. Sounds wrong if anyone says it. We laughed together. Ha 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 ha, we laughed. The lessons ended and I was on my way home with Himitsu. I couldn't get Kyosuke's classmate ranking out of my head. Or at least the rank of one classmate, Catherine Winters. I had paid attention to her before. Maybe it was because she wasn't Japanese, but most likely because she was beautiful, elegant, clever, and possessed a kind of mysterious charm. At the time I didn't realize that she was simply more mature and feminine than the other girls. And in some sense, Kyosuke was right. I was hiding, even if just for myself, that I had liked Catherine. Which is quite easy to do if you don't think about a girl in the context of a relationship. We talked about the beauty of actresses on TV screens, but a few people actually fall in love with them. It's another matter when the actress is your classmate. That makes her way more human, in a sense, and also available, not just a 2D picture, but a real girl you can at the very least talk to. Listen, do you like anyone in your class? Ooh, a new outfit for Himitsu. I asked Himitsu, continuing the flow of my thoughts aloud. But to her, this question was completely unexpected. Like, what do you mean? Well, any of the guys. Why do you ask, Nico-kun? Just talk with Kyosuke over break. New class, new school, you know? So, do you like someone? At the time I didn't even think about Himitsu's feelings. Didn't think of the conversation might be unpleasant for her. Was just talking about a normal school day with a friend. I don't really know. I grinned stupidly, scratched the back of my head, and turned away to hide my embarrassment. Nico-kun, Himitsu said angrily. You wouldn't have brought this up for no reason. Alright, my bad. There may be a certain American. American, huh? Himitsu drawled. Is she pretty? What do you think? Well, she's certainly not going to like you. Why is that? Asked with an indignation. Because you're lazy, rude, and insensitive, also sloppy and scruffy. Imagine if she saw what goes on in your room. Himitsu said all this in good nature, but her words still got to me. Why, thank you for the compliment. But that's the truth. You can't be offended by the truth. Right. Truth? Yeah, right. I grumbled. In all seriousness, though, Himitsu said a little later, her voice now completely different. What do you think about that girl? I don't think anything yet. So you're just gonna watch from a distance and do nothing? I don't know. That's not right. I think if you like someone, you should tell them. Would you? Me? We're talking about you right now. Maybe I will. But time passed and it became obvious that I had to do something. I thought of Catherine more and more often, and the thoughts were starting to become frankly obtrusive. But at first, even approaching her seemed like an impossible task to me, so inaccessible she appeared. Besides, Catherine barely talked to our other classmates either. At first I thought it was just due to her personality, but sometimes things would get simply ridiculous. One time working in a pair, she went an entire lesson without saying a word, proudly, with her head held high and a sense of dignity to her, just like a real lady, but still silently as she ended up with an F. Well, it would be one thing if she was all there was to it, if that was all there was to it, but it was an English lesson. Himitsu is an amazing friend. I know. She's good. We all could use a Himitsu in our life, right? It was hard to doubt Catherine's knowledge of it, but a school is a social institution where both the result and the method matter. You could solve math problems with the calculator, but you wouldn't get an A for it. In the end, Katya turned up her nose and left the class. I felt like it was my chance, and complaining about a terrible stomachache to the teacher went after her. Oh, if only it were that easy in real life. Giving an F to a native is messed up. That's exactly why I don't take Russian. I caught up to her on the staircase, and awkwardly tried to start a conversation. Catherine just gave me a look of distrust and said, "Yeah." Her Japanese grades weren't exactly amazing either, to say the least. And thus, finally, I found Catherine Winter's weak spot. At lunch, I approached her, smiled, and started to speak in Japanese as legibly as I could manage. Hi, sorry for saying this out of the blue, but I noticed you were having a hard time with Japanese. Mind if I help? My name is Nikolai, by the way. She raised her surprised eyes at me and answered coldly, "Thank you, but I'm fine." I mean, I understand that it's really stressful to end up in a foreign country, and a new school too. I've just been living in Japan for a while now. "I'm fine," she interrupted me in the same tone. "You know, the language matters the most. The faster you learn it, the faster you'll adapt." Catherine's look robbed me of all resolve to continue. Or not. From the first moment of our acquaintance, Miss Winters made it clear that she only saw me as yet another annoying classmate. She wasn't any good at making friends, and I wondered more and more often if her lack of Japanese skills really was the reason for it. However, besides disappointment, I was also overflowing with enthusiasm, a desire to get my way at all costs. One day in the canteen, I unceremoniously sat across from Catherine without an invitation. Bon appetit! She didn't respond and even seemed to pretend I wasn't there. She wanted to say I know we got off on the wrong foot. My bad. I shouldn't have imposed myself. It's not your fault. Catherine immediately switched to English. I just don't need help with Japanese. My knowledge is quite sufficient to survive the next 3 years here. Do you really hate it here that much? I responded in English as well, in anticipation for her reaction. Catherine didn't even bat an eye. How do I put it? It seemed like I had been reading too much of Kyosuke's manga. Why did I even think she had thought that I didn't know English? In any case, now she was a much friendlier than the first time. At least by her standards. You know, at first I was really afraid of the new country. Everything was so big. Although I had it easier, of course, being a child and all. Continuing to demonstrate her utter lack of interest, Catherine finally joined the conversation. "How old were you?" "7. Can you imagine?" I said enthusiastically. "I can. I was 7 once too." "So what brought you here? To Japan, I mean, not the canteen." "My mom is a diplomat." "Oh really? My parents are engineers. They work for Kobayashi Corporation. Heard of it?" "I have." Catherine kept poking her fork into something that probably used to be beef roast. So you're from the Soviet Union then? Yes, ma'am. Nikolai Anokin, at your service. Our countries don't have the best relationship. Why do you think ours would be any better? She smiled, if barely. Well, politics aren't my strong suit, but I don't think the common people should suffer because of the decisions of a bunch of idiots at power. I immediately realized it was correct to say in power, but Catherine didn't give me a chance to correct myself. That is a very shallow understanding of politics, Nikolai. I did say it's not my strong suit. So you advocate for world peace and friendship among all peoples? That'd be better, wouldn't it? I guess. What about you then? And why are we even talking about politics? I laughed. You started it. No, I didn't. You said that our countries don't have the best relationship. Well, let's say so. It was nice talking to you. Catherine stood up and took her tray and left. Not that I was going to stop her. The round had clearly been lost. Several more days passed, and I was waiting for Catherine at the school gates to go home together. Yeah, right. Next I'd be offering to carry her backpack. But we still hadn't realized it at the time. My attempt to get close to her was transforming into a sort of competition between the two of us. Oh hey, going home? Me too. What a coincidence. The only result of my action so far was the fact that she started to show more emotions. Most of which were more or less fit under the definition of the word sarcasm. Are you taking the subway? We're friends with Catherine again. Maybe? I guess we're teaching her Japanese or something like that, improving her grades or something. I don't know. I thought I was dying for a second. Yes, and for some reason, I feel like so are you. For your information, I could go on foot, but since we got ourselves this coincidence, I don't mind at all, don't get me wrong. I would never, God forbid. For a while we walked in silence. I pretended to harbor a grudge against Catherine, and she wasn't one to start a conversation. Or so it seemed to me. Her English is pretty good. I read a lot. What do you read? Science fiction mostly. Sheckley, Clark, Simak, Heinlein. I don't like science fiction. Well, girls rarely do. Do you know many? A couple. Himitsu for one. I see. From that moment on, my presence no longer interested her. What books do you like? Books? I can't really say. All kinds. My patience ran out. Listen, maybe you should stop acting like this. How am I acting exactly? Catherine even stopped. You know full well that I like you, then why all this? If you said no right away, we wouldn't need to pull on this act. You like me? That's when I grew embarrassed. Isn't that obvious? Not to a girl. Didn't you say you had a lot of experience with them? I said nothing like that, and anyway. So you want to date me? Well, yeah, that's a given. Alright. Alright what? I asked dumbfounded. Let's date. Just like that? You did say that I could have said no right away, and I chose to say yes. Catherine gifted me with a genuine smile. Well, okay then. I almost asked, what should we do now? By the way, we're here. And indeed, the station showed up from behind the corner. Must have a lot to think about, and since you don't live far from here. See you tomorrow then, boyfriend. Catherine flashed an even cuter smile and left me standing in a complete stupor. Well, guess we're dating now, Mafia babe. Wow, that was very easy. Today I know that this kind of behavior was at least somewhat normal for her. Ugh. But at the time I was so shocked that I didn't even feel any particular joy. Maybe I'd feel something similar if a 100-kilogram piece of concrete fell on the ground a meter away from me. It's nice that it didn't fall on my head, but the following days were each one better than the other. I grew closer with Catherine, and even though I didn't quite understand why she was like that, she became less arrogant. Oh, the garden, the park. One day we were sitting in a park, embracing each other. America doesn't have parks like this one. Really? Seems like a pretty normal park to me. No, not normal at all. It's beautiful, quite peaceful. Well, at least there's something in Japan that you like. Catherine's laughs were barely audible. By the way, do you know that in Russia you'd be called Katya? Katya? Sounds weird. Hey, Geek and Rat. How you doing today? It's good to see ya. Welcome to more visual noveling. How you doing today? How's life treating ya? I think it's really cute. I'll be calling you that from now on. No way. You don't like it? You'd be called Nick in America. You already call me Nick. She didn't respond, only sank deeper into my shoulder. We'll leave this place, right? Later when we finish school? For America? I couldn't say the prospect made me too happy. It seemed that my psyche wouldn't withstand another big relocation. For America or somewhere else. For the USSR? I don't know. We need to get married first. Why is that? They won't give me a visa otherwise. Mom works at the embassy. We can come up with something. Do you think she'd be happy that instead of going to college, her daughter... Who said instead? Katya asked with indignation. Well, we'd need to live on something. You'll go to work then. You don't want to study anymore, and either way. Sir, yes, sir. She laughed again. Do you really want to do all of that with me? The question surprised me, and I looked at her, but Catherine lowered her head. Of course. Wouldn't it be here otherwise? Here, in this park, or in Japan? On this earth. Kyosuke invites me to the Yamato crew all the time. Lead ship of our class of battleships, built for the Imperial Japanese Navy shortly before World War II, sunk by the American forces during World War II in the manga space battleship Yamato, brought up from the depths and remade into a spaceship. Cool. That's pretty sweet. You have weird friends, and you're also weird. My friends are totally normal. By the way, Himitsu's wanted to meet you for a while now. Your childhood friend, the half-Russian one? Yeah, I've told you about her. You must have way more in common with her. Even if I thought about it, I couldn't say what interest did I share with Himitsu. What are you hinting at? Nothing at all. She abruptly stood up from the bench and stretched her hand out to me. There's a special offer at the bar today. Buy 2 burgers for the price of 3 and get the 3rd one for free. You're pulling my leg. I grabbed her hand and pulled her to me. But Catherine meeting Himitsu was inevitable, and honestly, it was surprising that it didn't happen either. Is this a flashback? This might be a flashback. Yet another school day was coming to its end, and I was about to go home together with Catherine. To my place this time. We'd been dating for several weeks at that point, and the initial strongest burst of passion was starting to wear off. Naturally, that didn't stop us from spending all our free time together. But that day, Himitsu met us at the gates of the school. Nico-kun, hello! She bowed way too low, and I hurried to introduce Catherine to her. So this is Himitsu. Himitsu, this is Catherine. Yeah, this might be a flashback, because these two definitely met already. Catherine-san. She was about to bow again, but decided against it under my stern glare. Come on, why the formalities? Catty-chan? Himitsu asked, unsure. Katya only smiled back in embarrassment. Nico-kun, you never told me she was so tall. Himitsu whispered to me. Never crossed my mind, to be honest. Where do you study? In middle school. Here on the same grounds. I studied there too. Okay, this is definitely a flashback then. See? She used to get sick a lot and went to school a year later than me. Interesting. Catherine frowned slightly. Yeah, she always wanted to be in the same class as me, but it never worked out. I think Himitsu can speak for herself. Katya suddenly interrupted me. Himitsu, meanwhile, was standing nearby, picking at the ground with the tip of her shoe. She looked even smaller now when compared to Catherine. Oh yeah, sorry. The awkwardness soured the meeting of the 2 most important girls in my life. How about we celebrate your acquaintance then? Nico-kun, Himitsu said, still in a whisper but now with reproach. I don't think they like each other. Yeah, things are a bit awkward. Things are a little bit awkward, wouldn't you say? Well, that's actually a good idea. Don't you like it? Catherine asked her. Only if there won't be any alcohol. Alcohol? Does he usually? Not at all. I waved my hands in denial. Received and understood. Thanks for the information. I didn't. How much more am I going to learn about you, boyfriend? She asked in English. Himitsu wasn't that good at the language, and then this time, Catherine was actually trying to hide the meaning of her words from others. Okay, it happened once or twice. She's just worried about me. Worried, huh? Katya immediately shifted her gaze to Himitsu. In any case, nice to meet you. Me too. While the 3 of us were walking home, I was scolding Himitsu. Why start with that again? Why say all that? Who asked you? But I didn't even say anything. Himitsu was about to burst into tears. I should add that she used to be even more awkward around people. You have to think before you speak. You made me out to be an alcoholic or something. Anyway, I relented. Just don't do that anymore. Hang on a minute. The entire time, Catherine was watching us carefully without a word. I was speaking quietly and wasn't sure she'd heard what the conversation was about exactly. You're quite close. Actually, we've known each other for so many years. She's like a stupid little sister to me. Little sister, huh? Convenient. I know, poor Himitsu. She's not stupid. Want me to be the older one then? You can call me Oni-san! A threesome with two sisters at once. And now that'd be something, wouldn't it? Lucky man. Oni-san is a respectful way to address an older sister. Aha. She finished off her snide remark with a juicy slap on my ass. Good thing Himitsu didn't notice anything, at least. Truth be told, I like Catherine's peculiar sense of humor, but sometimes it crossed all possible lines, and not only by Japanese standards. When we reached home, Himitsu made that stupid bow again and bid us farewell. I think I'll go. I don't want to be a bother. Come on, you're not bothering us at all, right, Nick? Yeah, of course. I thought I looked like an idiot, even though for a moment I enjoyed Katya's idea with the two sisters. But if you have something to do, it had been a pleasure to meet you, she addressed Catherine. You got an interesting friend. Not everyone you could put up with someone like you for so many years. Indeed, Catherine was right, even if she was yet to know to what extent. I suddenly returned to reality and looked around. The park was still just as quiet and autumn appropriately chilly. The clock and my stomach ache together reminded me that it was high time for lunch. I was walking through the city, feeling detached from reality, like Alice stuck in a wonderland of memories, which by comparison made all the dangers looming over me seem much less important. As if the best had already passed and nothing good awaited me in the future. So what sense was there in worrying? Hey there, Kolya. Come on in. Long time no see. Today the bartender seemed to be the embodiment of hospitality. I'm just here for lunch. But a moment. He was eager to talk as always, but there were more visitors than usual, and he had to get back to work after bringing me my order. I was eating the ramen with gutso and noted once again that all in all it was no worse than a real Japanese ramen shop. Despite all the bartender's peculiarities, you couldn't deny that he knew his trade. He just had to remove that irritating bell over the door. The sound didn't just annoy me, it seemed to make my nerves themselves strain and tighten like strings. Meanwhile, someone I never expected to see here entered the bar. It was Saya-chan with her classmates. She looked around, choosing a table, noticed me, whispered something to her girlfriends, and headed toward me with clear determination. You! What are you doing here? That's what I should be asking you, Nokin-san. She sat across from me, quite unceremoniously, and looked right in my eye. What's she gonna do? What if she's the real villain, guys? What if Saya-chan's the real bad guy? I doubt it, but what about me? I just dropped in by for lunch. This place has wonderful ramen, by the way. My recommendation. Her presence was making me uncomfortable. I didn't realize, and I didn't even really know why. Perhaps because of all the memories? Catherine was right about Himitsu at the time, and apparently I started to feel ashamed again. And Saya was only making things worse. But you weren't at school today. Keeping an eye on me? I'm flattered. Don't play dumb. You're also out early, judging by the time. Our classes are already over, for your interest. Oh, I raised my eyebrows. Naturally, I wasn't interested at all. Himitsu was worried about you and went home. Why'd she worry about me? Here I am. Nokin-san. Just call me Nick, I told you. For some reason, coming from her in particular, these formalities were especially sickening. Nokin-san, you know what I'm talking about. No, I don't. And even if I did, I don't think it's any of your business. Worrying about a friend is very much my business. I couldn't object. In any case, you don't know all the details of our relationship. I don't see what details can matter when the relationship hurts one of the parties. I bit my lip and turned away, not even trying to hide my irritation. And now there's this foreigner girl too? What about her? I immediately looked back to Saya and grit my teeth, but she remained calm. Her return was quite timely. Now your life has no time left for Himitsu. Now that is definitely none of your business. So, you're not denying it? I'm not going to get into a pointless argument with you. You don't need to argue with me, but think about Himitsu. I do, okay? I do. I almost add it all the time. What do you even know? I let out a sigh and threw a greedy glance at the alcohol stand. 2 o'clock is the perfect time. Saya smirked. Turned out she was also quite attentive. Sure, I knew in my head that there was a fair bit of truth in her words, but I just couldn't agree. If only for my own sake. Listening to you makes my ears bleed. A shot would make it less bearable. At least bearable. You're hopeless. Maybe that's exactly why Himitsu likes me. Ever thought of that? So you know it and kept acting like that? Relax, I'm joking. There are things you can't joke about. Excuse me for not being a prude. Or having much of a conscience. Seriously, what do you want me to say? Why do you act like that? It's none of your business. I'm going through a rough patch in my life. She is kind of rude-ish, but you know what? I'm going through a rough patch in my life. You tell her that, and in response the bartender hits you over the head with a bottle. You are dead. It kills you for some reason. And so Himitsu, we've known each other since childhood, you know? We have kind of, how do I say it, connection between us. I know. I'm running out of unique ways for my character to get killed if I choose the wrong choice. 10 years. That's no joke. Half our lives. More even. Maybe you want the best for her, but it's not that simple. What's so difficult about her life? Don't you think you're the one making it difficult? It's a relationship. Things happen. Relationship. She smirked. It's an interesting choice of words, Anokin-san. Although, alright, I won't bother you. She stood up and headed to her girlfriend's. In reality, Saya hadn't said anything new and there wasn't any reason to be upset with her. Mostly, I was angry with myself. The girl had hit a sore spot. With great precision, I must say. Meanwhile, Himitsu's classmates weren't in a hurry to leave. Having finished their milk cocktails and then ice cream, they kept sitting there, chatting about casual stuff. I was throwing rare annoyed glances at them, but Saya was making a point to ignore me. To be honest, I simply found it hard to get up and walk past them to the exit. That would seemingly mean acknowledging my defeat and fleeing the battlefield. It was silly, but I kept sitting there to the bitter end. You have class? Alrighty, I'll see you later. Mafia babe, I wish you luck with your class. I'll let you know if anything crazy happens. Bye! Having chewed through even the chopsticks, finally their merry band got up from the table and prepared to leave. Saya shot me a farewell look, screwing her face into a snide grimace. She had to be thinking she won. Geez, Kolya, who was that? The bartender appeared next to me at once. If witch burning was still in fashion these days, I'd definitely report her to the Inquisition. So that was just a friend of Himitsu's. Ah, I see. He said thoughtfully and sat down beside me. No, actually, I don't. Maybe that's for the better. I paid my bill and left the bar. I was having a hard time getting my emotions in order after having the reprimanding Saya had given me. Sometimes you understand you're wrong. You can accept your mistakes somewhere deep inside. But if someone points them out, you can't help but argue. Yet another crazy day was coming to an end. I got caught in the rain while on my way back home and barged into the kitchen defeated. And immediately faced Himitsu's disapproving stare. There's probably no point in asking where you've been, Nico-kun. Probably not. I agreed, trying not to sound rude, and walked past her. Gotta take a shower, or I'll get sick. A hot dinner greeted me when I left the bathroom. After everything, I could only marvel at Himitsu's patience. Not everyone could put up with someone like you for that many years. Couldn't have said it better myself. Oh, this is a nice, cute picture here. Hi! Look at that smile. Alright. Sorry for disappearing today. I had to think. Very well. What's well about it? I'm glad you had time to think. Yeah, well, okay. By the way, I met Sayo-chan at the bar today. Really? Himitsu asked without much interest. I gotta say that she's weird. Yeah, weird. And she could do without prying into other people's business. Oh, my water bottle isn't even near me. Hang on a minute, guys. Okay, I gotta wet my whistle, as they say. Okay. I am good for the next whatever minutes or hours. What does she pry into? Well, you must know better than me. I don't know what she says about me, but Nico-kun, I'm capable of making my own decisions, she said in a bored voice. Of course, it didn't mean anything like that. It's just, whatever. I'm not trying to say I have to like all of your friends. That's nice. We kept silent for a while. So did all those thoughts bring you into any conclusions? Were they about Kati-chan? No, of course not. I felt like Himitsu would pretty much explode at any mention of Catherine. I mostly wanted to check if I'm being watched. So are you? Himitsu perked up. I don't know. Even if someone is watching, they're very good at it. Indeed, the Soviet intelligence agents, as well as the other players, hadn't shown themselves in any way in the past 2 days. That wasn't much of a lifetime frame to draw any broad conclusions, but it gave me at least some respite. Just to sink even deeper, ever deeper into my personal drama. For whatever reason, I couldn't bring myself to call our love triangle a melodrama. Maybe tragedy was a better word for it. So what do you think? I think that so far we're managing not to attract too much attention, and there's a good chance it'll stay like that. I really hope so. So do I. I'm really sick of this uncertainty. Himitsu looked at me attentively, but said nothing. By the way, the dinner was very good. Thank you. So did you talk about me with Saya-chan? Kind of, but you know her better than I, and you know everything she could tell me. I guess. Nico-kun, she really isn't a bad person, just a bit harsh sometimes, but not out of malice. Good intentions pave the road to hell, you know, although she'd be more the gatekeeper meeting new arrivals. Himitsu laughed, but quickly caught herself and frowned. Hey, I'm serious. On the other hand, she could also get an offer for Charon's job. Would be much better than the original anyway. She'd entertain her passengers with her grumbling along the way. Can you imagine Saya-chan in a robe? I pulled a towel over my head and made a face. Nico-kun, stop it! She kept laughing. I jumped up from the bed, ran to her, and threw the towel over her face. You're doomed to endless suffering in hell for having overdone the tofu. Tofu, also known as bean curd in English, is a food prepared by coagulating soy milk, then pressing the resulting curds into solid white blocks, varying softness, rich in protein. Okay, that's tofu. Nico-kun! Himitsu kept desperately resisting and pushed me away. I lost my balance and fell to the floor, taking her with me. You dare, mortal! You have the courage to oppose the will of Hades. For a while we struggled, and soon I ended up atop Himitsu, holding her hands firmly in mine, which would already be quite a precarious position to be in, but it was also exacerbated by the fact that Himitsu's face flushed and her hair scattered on the floor. We fell quite simultaneously, and she no longer laughed. In the dissident silence, only the sound of our heartbeats could be heard. The tension was even halted the air in my lungs. Nico-kun, I didn't play the fool and specify what exactly she wanted. I simply kept silent. Himitsu lay there unmoving still. Whatever happened now, she would take the initiative. But as bad luck would have it, I remembered Catherine again and that day in the park 2 years ago. I couldn't do this to Himitsu. First I had to sort out myself and my feelings toward each of them. I let go of her hands and fell to the floor next to her. Sorry. What are you apologizing for? She immediately happily responded. I'd like to remind you that we've got school tomorrow. Himitsu painfully punched my side. Ouch! Still, I was grateful for her tactfulness. That was another thing to add to the others I was grateful to her for. It's war, then. I grabbed a pillow. Exhausted, we were lying on the bed, resting. It was 9 o'clock. It's so late already. Himitsu suddenly realized. Wouldn't say it's particularly late. I still need to do homework for tomorrow. They gave us a lot, and someone made me so nervous today that I had other things on my mind. I wonder who that might have been. All right, I'm leaving. She stuck her tongue out at me and left, flashing a goodbye smile. When I was left alone, I took a deep breath and immediately felt overwhelmed. Without a prelude or a preface, I could have... What am I doing? The sense of guilt was burning me from the inside. My broken heart joined the chorus, making my existence virtually unbearable. It seemed to be suffocating and burning at the same time, as if ending up in the real hell. It was absolutely impossible to remain in silence and solitude anymore. Hastily trudging through puddles, I reached the nightclub. She might be from Everlasting Summer. She looks exactly like a character from that game. That might be like an Easter egg or something. Maybe not, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm at the nightclub. Yay. We're back with the rock and roll part of the rock and roll game. My consciousness kicked in. I was sitting behind a table densely covered by beer mugs, shots and rocks glasses, drowning in clouds of cigarette smoke. My thoughts were tumbling over each other, but my main goal had been achieved. I managed to calm down, even if it was achieved this way by drinking myself to unconsciousness. Some band was playing on the stage, but I wasn't in any condition to listen properly. The rhythmic drum of the speakers was more than enough. Suddenly, an unfamiliar guy sat on my table and started to speak quite quickly, although it was more like he was opening and closing his mouth like a fish in water. Huh? What? I can't hear. I moved closer. I'm saying it's nice to see a European here. He said in English. I didn't even notice right away that he wasn't Japanese. Yeah. Where are you from? I live nearby. No, I mean from what country? USSR. I replied after a pause. My perception of reality was significantly clouded by alcohol, but I still didn't count on Kobayashi Corporation and the KGB to suddenly leaving me alone. And I'm... He said where he was from, but I couldn't hear and decided not to ask again. Ed. The guy stretched his hand out to me. Ed, what? My name's Ed. What's yours? Nick. I shook his hand. You come here often? Sometimes. I'd guess he was slightly over 20, but all in all, Ed possessed an absolute forgettable appearance. Were I to be interrogated the next day, I wouldn't be able to name any characteristics. No long hair, no big nose, no scars or birthmarks. You could say he was a very fitting appearance for a spy. Stretch. Or an intelligence officer, depending on your perspective. You're on tour with my favorite band. He shouted the name so loudly that it even overpowered the buzzing of the guitars, but I still couldn't make it out. They're headlining today. Yeah. He seemed to be just a regular music fan rather than a spy. I downed the shot of whiskey courteously offered by Ed, then another one, and the guy quickly began to seem like a wonderful person. Nice. Listen, Ed. I was tripping over my tongue, but a drunk always understands another drink. They're on the same page, so to say. Do you have someone? I mean a girl. Yeah, my wife is waiting for me at home. Wife? So serious. I see. And you? And me. I sighed and downed half a glass of beer in one go. Hell knows what's going on in my life. I may even have two. Ha! Well, I mean, not two wives, two girls, and I don't know who to choose. What does your heart tell you? Heart? Is that ever that easy? The one, that only works in books. Stupid books. Okay, try a different approach. Which of them seems to be the lesser evil? What do you mean? I asked, startled. It turned out to be less drunk than me after all. Well, which choice would make you lose less? Which choice would harm others less? Well, if you put it this way, Catherine can live without me for sure. She's been doing alright for the last year and a half. But Himitsu, well, I wouldn't say she's off herself, but who knows though? Is it that serious? He asked compassionately. No, it's just in the context of this discussion, you know. From what you said, it seems like this Himitsu is just dependent on you. Dependent? No way, we're not like... It's a term in psychology. You, on the other hand, are dependent on Catherine. I'm not dependent on anyone. I felt resentment growing inside me. I'm just trying to help, bro. Cool down. Better get another round. Give me a second. Okay. And what does your psychology suggest to do in my case? I asked after giving his words a bit of thought. Getting rid of the dependency. By getting rid of the dependency, you mean the way they usually do it in Hollywood films? Think I should shoot Catherine? I laughed loudly. But then Himitsu would have to shoot me. In reality, there was nothing funny about that. Especially in my situation. Especially considering that I could actually catch a bullet at any moment. There are easier ways, for example, visiting a psychologist. A psychologist? Are you serious? I'm going to tell him that. Catherine's mother was involved in my parents' death, and I'm haunted by the most powerful corporation in Japan. But I can't think about anything but love, simultaneously feeling guilty about my childhood friend who had also built dependency on me. No, I couldn't say that. It might be a good idea, though. It'd send me to the madhouse right off. I'd definitely be safe there. You're taking it too close to heart, making a tree out of a molehill. What? No, Ed, I think you're shit first. His mistake entertained me a lot and distracted me from my dark thoughts. Well, I'm still doing better than you. I guess so. You are older. Although I'm trying to become a worthy Alco marathoner. Not bad. Be careful with that. Otherwise, you might never reach the finish line. We all reach the finish line one way or another. Just the distance is different for everyone. Suddenly, the crowd grew silent, and after some time, an intro to a famous song came out from the speakers. Oh, here they are. Let's go to the stage. I didn't know this band, which made me even more surprised to see them at such a mediocre club. The furious energy of the music and the roaring crowd soon washed over me and made me forget about my problems. When the performance was over, I even sobered up a bit, but Ed approached me immediately with a couple of beer cans in his hands. Here, try this. It's a brand new one. Bought the same with us. I took a few gulps, and that was just enough. The concert all started to blur before my eyes. Hang on a second, guys. Don't mind me. Blur before my eyes. You know, Ed, you're a cool guy. Really cool. Pity there are no such guys here, you know? If you want, we can continue at my place, an after party, so to say. I'd like to, but I still need to help the band load their equipment. Then I'll help as well. I tried to stand up, but instead fell to the floor and immediately burst out laughing. Whoops, seemed to be having trouble navigating. The next words Ed said to me seemed to sound from somewhere far away. The yell of a captain of a ship passing by in the fog. Sit here for a bit, we'll drive you home. I will. Why not? I barely managed to climb onto the chair and start to look for booze. And of course, I found it soon. I don't even know what even is doing with the happening anymore. I'm not drunk. You shut your mouth, bro. Gah. People say you should love yourself. I guess it's not that simple or obvious to everyone, but I'm confident everyone can hate themselves. The only requirement is to drink a life-threatening amount of something combustible. Woke up and lay in bed for some time, staring at the ceiling, struggling to understand who and where I was. I couldn't even recall how I got home yesterday, or to be more precise, this morning. My last memory was of that conversation with Ed. That seemed to be after midnight. What time was it when I woke up? The hour hand pointed straight at the Roman numeral 1. So I slept for almost 12 hours? Why did I feel like sure? Because you slept for 12 hours. Although it was equally possible I'd gotten home way later than I thought. A headache and nausea wouldn't let me stay in bed, but as soon as I stood up, the whole world shifted under my feet, forcing me to lie down again. I grazed my leg against the table, knocking a piece of paper off of it. Nico-kun, you can't drink like this. I found you in the hallway this morning and even barely dragged you into your bed. I'll drop by after school. I'm sure you won't be able to go anywhere. But even if you intend to, don't even think about it. It was written in Russian in Himitsu's beautiful, neat handwriting. For once I completely agreed with her. Moreover, I was going to insist on reinstituting prohibition. Half an hour in the bedroom somewhat brought me to my senses. Not really, though. I barely regained the ability to move more or less steadily, without every motion causing my head to ache. There were soup kimono on the table, no pickle juice, sure, but anything I would have immediately vomit back out was good for me. I managed to eat them without much difficulty. Japanese preserved vegetables, pickled in salt, brine, or a bed of rice bran. Cool. I felt somewhat better after restoring the balance of electrolytes in my body, even if not for long. Well, now being sober, I realized that yesterday I'd been drinking way more than that Ed guy. While he was nursing a single beer, I would finish a couple glasses of whiskey, maybe even a few shots of tequila on top of that. I was accelerating as if late for my train to hell. Ed, what an interesting guy. His words made me think about a number of things, but their true meaning was only coming through now. Of course, he didn't really say anything new, just described my condition in brief, with a few accurate and hard-hitting statements. However, even that can be enough sometimes. The facts themselves don't change, but their interpretation does. Objective and subjective levels of existence, the struggle between perception and reality, the loud ring of the doorbell, piercing my brain like lightning, my headache returning at once. Who the hell's there? I sat quietly loud and opened the door. Catherine was standing at the doorstep. What a surprise. I was genuinely surprised. Is this a bad time? As you can see, it is. While in the bathroom, I had looked at myself in the mirror and harbored no doubt that my condition was self-evident. Not that Catherine was surprised in the first place. Looking at her, I recalled Ed's words about dependency. After all, the girl standing before me wasn't the same as 2 years ago, when she definitely wasn't the image from my dreams. Frankly speaking, I wasn't completely sure whether I loved this Catherine. At least whether I loved her as strongly as before. Didn't bring any gifts? I grinned, letting her pass to the kitchen. Hey, Zero. Looks like you're first, kind of. Oh yeah, you can play. You get to play with Caroline here. There you go. You get to play with her. How you doing, though? Good to see ya. I grinned, letting her pass into the kitchen. I wouldn't refuse a can of beer. I have something important to discuss. Ooh, I might be dying again. She ignored my words and sat down with her legs crossed. I'm listening. She wouldn't have come to my place without a reason anyway. It was clear we were going to talk about something of critical importance. I talked to my mom about everything, about that phone call, and you and your parents. She didn't want to explain anything for a while, but I insisted. To cut a long story short, you don't need to worry about anything anymore. Could you not cut the long story? As is, doesn't sound very convincing, to be honest. She used to be indirectly related to your parents' work. You know, they worked on an important project, right? I nodded. Even though I hadn't known about it until a couple of days ago. It turned out that things weren't going smoothly, and... Catherine went silent, frowned, and looked away. Nick, I know it may come as a shock to you, but they were suspected of being Russian spies. What? My lips stretched into an idiotic smile. Even if that were the case, was that a reason to kill them? It was Catherine's turn to be surprised. Kill? No, it was an accident. It's just that some questions related to their work has been raised recently. Mom told me all about it. And you believed her? Naturally? I sighed. No, I definitely needed some beer. Why shouldn't I believe her? Indeed, if I only took the facts into account, her mother's story matched up pretty well with Ichinose's, except that they had different narratives. He was blaming the corporation for everything that had happened, while Catherine's mother was trying to cover this accident up by making culprits out of Soviet engineers. You don't believe me? She said as a statement, not a question. I do, or to be more precise, I believe that you believe it, but I have no reason to believe your mother, because... Was I supposed to tell her about my conversation with Ichinose? There was little chance it would put her at risk, but I still didn't want to take the chance. Think for yourself. What would you do in my place? I don't know, but I'm sure my mom could never do anything like that. Like what? Strictly speaking, I never accused her mother of being personally involved in my parents' deaths. Was she involved indirectly? Well, that was possible. Was she involved in the project? No doubt. But it was obvious that she hadn't been the one to issue the order. Anyway, I'm grateful that you came and told me everything. How couldn't I? Catherine asked me, surprised. Oh, I'm sure you know enough how couldn't? Do you still take me for the devil incarnate? I didn't know if it was the hangover or if some veil of Katya's divinity had been lifted from my perception, but I felt much more comfortable around her. Most likely because she wasn't just behaving normally, trying to maintain some minimal level of courtesy. I just don't have any reason to trust your mother, but I understand you and don't blame you. Of course you don't. Or not. Are you enjoying the blizzard? Shockingly, there hasn't been a blizzard right now. Is it snowing in your area? Is it blizzarding super hard? Yeah, shockingly, it's not snowing in my place, thank goodness. I don't want a blizzard. I agree that the situation is complicated, but if you think about it, my mother didn't say anything objectionable. Of course, if you want to pick apart the wording, yeah, I'm used to not doing that with you. I jabbed, but Catherine seemed to pay no attention to it. What do his parents have to do with all this? They're long dead. Why should we do this? You're so interested in him. Handle it by yourself. You call that nothing objectionable? I am remembering her words correctly, right? They were connected through work somehow. I've already told you. On the other hand, if I disregarded how I was personally involved here, there was some logic to it. I could easily imagine a situation where Mrs. Winters had nothing to do with all this, but I absolutely did not want to believe that, and with good reason. Fine, I got you, I said dryly. Whatever the case, arguing with Catherine wouldn't be of any help to either of us. I'm glad. Not that she looked particularly satisfied. For a moment, I even had a thought that Katya was displeased by the fact that I was speaking to her so coldly, with no mention of love till death do us part. Anything else? No, that's all. She stood up, smoothed out her skirt, cast an appraising glance over the kitchen, and bid me farewell. Enjoy your hangover. After seeing her out, I felt proud of how much resilience I'd shown. Thank you, Ed. Still, it took me some time to fully digest her conversation. The clock read 4, but Himitsu still hadn't come. Logically, she should have rushed to my place right after school. I guess I even wanted that. The marathon yesterday managed to fulfill its objective. It blurted my sense of guilt, and I could look her in the eye with relative ease. Why not take the initiative, then? A minute later, I was enthusiastically ringing the doorbell of Himitsu's house. However, her father answered the door instead of her. Nikolai, good morning. Good afternoon, Ryunosuke-san. Is Himitsu home? She went out to do some shopping. Okay then, I'll drop by later. It's fine. Come in. You can wait here. She'll be back soon. Sorry to bother you. I used the standard Japanese form of politeness. Perhaps that wasn't my habit, but Ryunosuke-san commanded respect by appearance alone. Tall, especially for a Japanese, always serious and even somehow overly collected man. He didn't waste time on idle gossip, and I couldn't recall ever seeing him smile. Ooh, we're in her house. She has a kind of a big TV. And there's a cat. There's a kitty cat. Oh, snap. How are you doing, Nikolai? Himitsu's father asked in the same tone. I wondered if he noticed my obviously poor condition. I really hoped he didn't. I'm doing all right. And you? He looked at me closely. Was it an inappropriate question? I'm fine. I heard your mutual friend has returned to Japan. Catherine, right? Yes. Himitsu definitely shouldn't have told that to her father. Himitsu, who needed that? I see. The awkward pause dragged on. Ryunosuke-san was just sitting on the sofa, keeping his eyes fixed on me, which was frankly making me feel uncomfortable. Finally, the front door opened and I could hear steps coming from the hall. I'm home! Himitsu appeared in the living room with bags in her hands. Nico-kun, she explained, but having noticed her father, caught herself. So glad you came. Wait, I won't be long. She rushed to the kitchen to unload the bags. I won't bother you. Ryunosuke-san bid his farewell. I nodded, trying not to be too courteous this time. When the doors closed behind him, Himitsu's virtually assaulted me. Nico-kun, were you deign to explain what that was yesterday? That's what I'm here for. I relaxed into the armchair and smiled. She clearly hadn't expected this kind of reply. Hey, Cal! Good to see you today, kiddo. How you doing? Welcome to a visual novel, believe it or not. A Valentine's Day visual novel with love, money, rock and roll, and the threat of death in the air. Oof. How have you been, though? It's good to see ya. How's life treating ya? Well, that's good, of course, but I just couldn't handle the stress. I needed to relax. So you think drinking yourself into oblivion is a good way to relax? You're doing all right. That's good. What have you been up to these days? Whatever works. Try not to relax so much you won't be able to tense up again, she said in a grim voice and returned to the kitchen. We are going to have dinner soon. I didn't want to and couldn't eat at all, but there was no option to refuse the invitation either. Hello, BSR Walgu. Welcome to the stream. I probably said that wrong. And hey, Eliza. What's up? It's good to see you here too. Lemfow, really? Mid-ass novel, dude. I don't know. I thought it's been well so far. It's been cool and well and awesome. But what's up? Went to a job interview and waiting for a response. Ooh. Whereabouts? What do you want to work for? Oh, there's a dog outside. There's a dog outside my house. But yeah, good luck with it, Cal. You're gonna get it. I believe in ya. When were you at school last time? Do you even remember? Well, on Tuesday. Tuesday. She grumbled and put her chopsticks away. You're welcome, Cal. You can do it. You have the powers of my job interview skills, which is nothing actually, but you still have it. That was a signal that I didn't have to force myself anymore. Morning pickles were more than enough for me. Nico-kun, this is no joke. Nobody's laughing, you know. Like in that joke, when I wanted to become a comic, everyone was laughing at me. But guess what? Now I am one and nobody's laughing anymore. Ha 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 ha. Oh, fudge. Ultima, you got food poisoned? Oh no. What did you eat that got you food poisoned? Don't feel so good. Dang. You watched this, or you read this already? 50 plus hours there wasted. Damn. Well, I've been enjoying it so far. I've been taking it one day at a time, and I've been enjoying myself. I want to see, like, if I get killed or not. You applied only the best place ever that will make you super rich. You applied to the Ultima job? You're gonna work for me? You cooked through the chicken and washed your vegetables. Weird. Maybe it was something else. Something secret. It's just that I feel like I'm not myself these days. But over yesterday and today, I've given it some thought, reevaluated my life a bit. McDonald's? Oh, I gotcha. I'm gonna stop by your workplace, Cal, and I'm gonna ask for discounts if that's alright. Yeah, good plan. Very good plan. You got stomach cramps suddenly, feeling like throwing up and felt so dizzy. Very weird. Gotta cook your chicken and veggies goodly, I guess. Or maybe it was something else, like I said. Give it thought. Successfully? You got me? Awesome, thanks, Cal. I love the fries. I don't know yet. It was too early to draw conclusions. Apparently she was still upset because she was talking a lot less than usual. How was your day? As usual, my days always go as usual, Nico-kun. Perhaps I didn't ask enough about Himitsu's life, or more precisely, about the part that wasn't related to me. But how could she blame me if it wasn't as usual for her? So nothing new at all? Well, Saya-chan told me you were rude to her yesterday. Huh? Guess she didn't notice the industrial timber complex in her own eye. Himitsu smiled. But this time she wasn't swearing about you that much, so you can be proud of yourself. Got to the point where you had to stop being picky about where you wanted to work. Gotcha. Might as well work anywhere you can, right? But I have good news for you, Cal. Really, really good news for you that might really pick up your day. There's a kitty cat here. Isn't he so cute? But the time wasn't swearing. What an achievement. If you would pay more attention to other people, what do I care about? What do I care about your saya? You should treat others like you wanted to be treated yourself, and you treat everyone terribly. Well, I treat you okay. That's what you think. Himitsu said quietly. What? Well, sorry. I had to admit, her words stung. I still didn't care what this Saya-chan and the rest of her thought of me. I even knew perfectly well that I had acted like a pig to Himitsu, but when she said it herself, I recalled Ed and his applied psychology again. Psychoanalysis is, at its core, the process of structuring thoughts, sorting through them so that each has its own place. Try throwing all of your stuff into one big box for years, and then try and find something you need in a couple of minutes. So what are you guys preparing for the school festival? Tried to change the topic rather awkwardly. I've already told you, a cafe. I immediately wanted to see Himitsu in a maid uniform, though I didn't say it. I'm sure the food will be delicious. If you're in charge of cooking, then definitely. You'll take Eliza's order. Awesome. Other girls can cook too. Definitely not as well as you. You'll try it when you come by. I definitely will. By the way, let me handle the dishes. Oh, that's not too much to offer effect to you. We'll just have to wait and see. It's interesting how something as ordinary as a kitchen sink can be so dissimilar in each individual house. Literally in its every aspect, the tap and the handles, the location of the drain, the sponges and the rags. The pressure was remarkably strong, but the water didn't splash all over the kitchen like at my place. Well, you can't underestimate how well thought out modern houses are. Should we go out somewhere? I still felt guilty because of what happened yesterday, and a few words weren't going to change that. Needed something more substantive. Go where? Himitsu asked. She'd already turned on the TV and was watching a soap opera. We could just walk around, or go to the cinema. Do you want to watch a movie? I don't know, she said, not expressing much interest. What's the movie about? Some sort of science fiction, I guess. Is it scary? Himitsu didn't like horror films. I have to admit, I shared that's the sentiment, though for different reasons. Well, we can watch it and see if it is. She turned the TV down and after a few seconds said merrily, You choose. On the one hand, I wanted to watch a new movie, but on the other hand, I know what happens with Himitsu in a cinema when some sort of papier-mâché monster appears on screen. A simple walk wasn't that dangerous, but of course it wasn't that entertaining either. Go to the movies, go for a walk. Maybe the movie will be Star Wars. I'm gonna go to the movies. It's expected to be silent during a movie, and I wasn't in the mood to talk to her. I had no problem with being attentive and spending time together, but I couldn't get Catherine's morning visit out of my mind. Felt like she came for the sake of decency rather than any worry for me. Like if a mother who sends her child to apologize before the kid that child had stolen a toy from at the playground. Responsibility, servitude, obligation. Catherine was trying hard to show that she was doing all this because she had to rather than wanted to, and that indeed was only raising new questions. How would she need to prove her innocence so desperately? After all, an uneasy conscience betrays itself. Nico-kun? We should go to the cinema. Well, if it's a horror movie, it's on you. All the showings of the film I wanted to watch were in the evening, so I had to go for a sob melodrama. Aw, darn. That almost made me fall asleep. Himitsu, on the contrary, obviously liked it a lot, since from the middle of the film she started sobbing louder and louder, and by the finale she was crying her eyes out. No Star Wars today, guys. Sorry. The movie was great. It's a pity real life isn't like all that. We walked out of the cinema and bought two ice cream cones, vanilla for me and strawberry for Himitsu. Why? Brain cancer is a common issue these days. The protagonist falls in love with a girl unaware that she's gravely ill and only has a month to live. Hardly gets more banal than that. You've ruined it again. You'd make a bad writer. So a writer needs to lack logic? A writer needs to have empathy. Stop grumbling. Why should I feel sympathetic over some clearly contrived story, especially considering the 30-year-old high schoolers? That's not true. She's only 25. Mitsu frowned and bit her ice cream with near hatred. What's good about your science fiction books? That's where there's lack of logic. Nothing's real. They're just metaphors. Tried to come up with an excuse, but Himitsu continued. You would have definitely liked the movie if it was happening on another planet. Or say if there was a breakup instead of a disease, she would break up with him and fly to the other end of the galaxy, or while he would freeze himself to wait for her. The conversation was getting dangerous. That's a wonderful story. You should write it down. However, laughing it often at work. Haven't come up with an ending yet. Michi responded angrily and bit out of chunk of ice cream again. This time it didn't go well. Ouch! She rolled her eyes and started jumping in place. Trying to freeze yourself like in your novel? Asked her sympathetically and took the cone out of her hands. It's always like that with you. Himitsu grumbled and, having come to her senses, walked quickly onwards. How did she always manage to guess what I was thinking about so accurately? I wasn't enjoying these allusions to Catherine at all. If Himitsu were to continue with this train of thought, she would come to absolutely absurd conclusions, get dramatic, find culprits, and pass judgment on them. And all of that would have happened based on emotions and feelings alone, with no consideration given to reality. Maybe it was very womanlike, maybe it was very childish, but I had what I had, and I had to live with it somehow. We're in the park! Would you guys visit this park, by the way? I probably would. I just followed Himitsu, and in 10 minutes we arrived at a park. It's so beautiful here, Nico-kun. Why do we come to this place so rarely? Yes, you would. Yeah, it does look nice. Yeah, not quite often. I smirked, but it sounded somewhat unnatural. Not that she was paying attention. Until now, I had only come here with Catherine. I wondered if Himitsu knew that. However, the fresh air did me good. The desire to make nasty jokes disappeared without a trace. You know, this really is a nice place. There you go. She smiled victoriously and took me by the hand. What would Catherine think if she saw us? Would she be jealous? Sorry I got so drunk yesterday. Oh well, bygones. What matters is making the right conclusions. But the part about me making a bad writer was upsetting. I didn't mean it. I'll give you a sarcasm placard. To be honest, subtle humor wasn't Himitsu's forte. You keep joking, Nico-kun, but time flies by. Flies where? There, soon we'll need to enroll in college. Of course she knew that I wasn't going to continue studying, but continued to ignore that fact as if she had decided everything for me already. We've discussed this so many times already. Yes, and nothing changes. I'll need to live on something after school. My parents' money isn't endless, you know? You can always find a part-time job, or... She grew embarrassed and stopped talking. In the life philosophy of Himitsu, an idea was a basic unit of organization. It couldn't be divided into parts and didn't obey the laws of the macro world. One had to get university education was an idea, while the hows and whys were completely irrelevant. Easy for you to say. I snapped at her, recalling that Catherine and I had more or less the same conversation in more or less the same place. Maybe I'd like to, except... Well, I don't know. I still need to live to that moment, and right now I'm having some difficulties with that too. Nico-kun! Himitsu lowered her head and gripped my hand tighter. I started to feel a bit uncomfortable. We're just trying so hard to pretend nothing has changed. I guess I was the one mostly responsible for that. I was trying too hard not to involve Himitsu in my problems. Never mind, forget it. Nico-kun! What? I snapped. You're not helping at all. You're only lamenting like an old woman. An old couple was looking at us with clear interest, even a little unceremoniously, perhaps because we were speaking Russian. What are you staring at? I barked at them in Japanese. The oldies immediately started to look around the park fearfully, as if searching for a policeman. Nico-kun, have you gone completely mad? Mitsu hissed at me, quickly bowed and apologized and quit and dragged me away. We walked out into the city where I was immediately received my deserved reprimand. You can't behave like that. I don't even have the words. Alright, sorry. I really did feel guilty. However, guilty to Himitsu rather than a couple of old strangers. It's not because of your drinking. You completely lost yourself. I had zero desire to listen to this, but after what I had done, interrupting her wasn't an option. Let's go home, I said, avoiding her eyes. We spent almost the entire walk back in silence. I was thinking what I would have felt if Himitsu hadn't been around at that moment. Maybe nothing. Maybe I would have also told them to fuck off. Eliza, they're swearing. I thought this was a kid's visual novel. Now they're dropping F-bombs and stuff. Just, I can't even right now. When we arrived, I stopped and said, "All right, I will see you tomorrow then." "Yeah, bye." Himitsu replied briefly and left. Left too quickly, as if she were upset by me. Apparently I wasn't going to get dinner tonight. However, that seemed to be the least of my problems. I know. What's going to be next, Eliza? What will they say next? It's filthy and bad. For a normal person, it would have been an evening already. But I'd only woken up at 1 o'clock, so I was still full of energy. My hangover had long retreated, allowing me to come to my senses and start thinking constructively. And Catherine was doing pretty much everything she could to kill my love for her. She was quite successful at it, I have to say. On the other hand, you can instantly destroy what took years to emerge and grow stronger. Yep. Gotta stretch. A phone rang in the hall. It sounded dull and somehow phlegmatic. "Hello?" "Hi, Nick. Are you busy?" Michael's voice sounded calm and even as always, even pacifying to a degree. "No, just came back. Been walking around with Himitsu." "All right. I've something to talk about, eye to eye." "Can we discuss it over the phone? Why the secrecy?" "No." He answered briefly, and I started to worry. Secrecy meant a lot to me now. I assume it can't wait until tomorrow? "No." "I see. When and where?" "In the city center in an hour." "Okay. See you." I hung up and let out a sigh. I'd just come back and only managed to take my shoes off. What's he up to, guys? Is he going to kill me? Michael was punctual and appeared on time, although I wasn't late either. At first I wanted to warn Himitsu, but then I figured that since I wasn't meeting with Catherine, Ichinose, or anyone else who'd make her concerned, I had nothing to worry about. As for Michael, whatever the subject of the discussion would be, there was no reason to expect anything dangerous from him. "Well, hi. Why the urgency? Let's find somewhere quiet first. You sound like a real spy today." Michael didn't react to my joke, however, which was to be expected, but I started to feel even more off. He led me to the park. Wasn't I coming here a little much these days? So, dropped the suspense. We sat on the bench far from the main entrance. Do you remember our conversation on Monday about my father's work in Kobayashi Corporation? I do. Why? After all, I haven't told him anything specific. Well, I couldn't get it out of my head, so I talked to my father, and we may have to leave Tokyo or even Japan altogether. He sighed and frowned, which for Michael could be described as an emotional storm. "Something is happening, Nick. Something serious, and I think you might be in danger." "Come on, who am I to—" "This danger might be coming from Kobayashi Corporation. You've asked about them yourself." I couldn't play the fool about Michael. He was too astute for that. I stopped smiling idiotically and looked away, staring at the dark silhouettes of the trees and the pond. "What exactly do you know?" "Nothing in particular, but my father was worried, and that doesn't happen often." "Well, yeah, like father, like son." "Even if there was something, it's fine now. If I were to believe Catherine. If I were you, I wouldn't just neglect. I'm telling you, it's all right." I ground my teeth but continued in a lower voice. "Thank you for caring." The spirit of contradiction seemed to be strong, in me. You gotta make cacao. Gotta make some chocolate milk or something like that. "I'll see you soon, Eliza. Make it good." After all this madness I'd experienced in the last couple of weeks, I finally managed to fix my relationship with Himitsu, handle the situation with Catherine to some extent, and nobody was following me anymore. At least not openly. And now it was going to start all over again? And who was informing me about this? Michael? It felt as if a Christmas deer had brought me some news on its horns. Well, I just wanted to warn you. That's all I can do. Are you sure you're going to leave? I don't know yet. When will you know, then? I can't say that either. This sounds like riddles and assumptions. Not enough to panic over, don't you think? Who's panicking? Due diligence never hurt anyone. What do you mean by due diligence? What should I do to be diligent? Buy a gun? I smirked. You could hardly do that here, but if we were in the US, I'd say it might be a good idea. Is it really that bad? Jokes like this weren't in Michael's character, and he seemed serious. I hope not. Either way, I couldn't tell him about my situation. Not because he would tell his father, but because the fewer people were involved, the better. Okay, don't take it so seriously. Who are we? Just students. We're irrelevant. Maybe you're right. Michael responded after some time and stood up. It's late. Will you come to school tomorrow? I will. On my way back, I was constantly looking around and even chose a longer route to confuse my potential stalkers. However, it seemed like they were either not following me or following me too well. Of course, I couldn't get Michael's words out of my head, but it felt as if I had been sedated. My own problems seemed distant, as if they belonged to a total stranger. Are you still here, Cal? I never knew you were in this game. I never knew that person was you there. That's crazy. Sometimes it can be almost impossible to break out of a negative perception of things and see the good aspects and positive changes in life. Or sometimes the overwhelming wave of positivity doesn't let you think straight and see that things aren't all so rosy, and that the enemy literally hides around the corner. I was walking down the streets of the Japanese capital and breathing rich autumn air. Every season has its own outstanding smell. For summer, it's green grass, blossoming flowers, gentle sea breeze, soil, and asphalt heated by the sun. But autumn brings along freshness and humidity of frequent rains, dampness of soiled leaves, the aroma of ripe apples, and rich scent of fermented plums. To me, autumn was the crowning achievement of creation, the final point and pinnacle of the cycle. For a couple of weeks, we could enjoy soft, warm days and fresh, invigorating evenings, the whirlpool of colors and the withering nature and the ripe, juicy fruits. And then the arrow of life soars over midnight to begin a new ascent to the summit through the long winter night. My big empty house greeted me when darkened with darkness. I had already grown a bit unfamiliar with in dead silence. Somewhere deep inside I was hoping that Himitsu would come after all, or at least would make dinner, or even just leave a note. However, I wasn't particularly upset about that. After all, this had gone pretty well. Neglecting the matter of dinner and feeling almost happy, I went to bed and quickly fell asleep. Good night. Good morning! The early bird catches the worm. Yet another one of those proverbs I doubted the truthfulness of. For one single reason, even if I ever were to catch worms in the morning, it only happened thanks to Himitsu. But today I woke up early. It seemed I was forming a habit. My stomach was growling. I was hungrier than ever. Himitsu almost always made breakfast for me, but had I ever cooked for her? Sure, sometimes I'd wake up early and want to eat, but like this, deliberately and purposefully? After tidying myself up, I headed for the stove. I wondered if an English breakfast would be a good choice. Hot chocolate with banana. Ooh, you're making a hot chocolate banana sundae with bananas? That sounds good, Eliza. I want some. I seem to have all the necessary ingredients. Eggs, bread, even bacon. I thought that there was supposed to be something else. Corn, tomatoes, or beans. Well, if it wasn't that important, I still had tsukemono from yesterday, and that could fill in for the other vegetables. Tastes good. Lucky. I glanced at the clock. I cast a glance at the clock. Himitsu would arrive soon. Himitsu would arrive with 3 R's soon. 0 out of 10. Worst game I've ever played. Am I right, guys? Unplayable. The eggs sizzled happily in the pan, the yolks like little suns. The day seemed bright and fair. I opened the garden door wide, letting fresh air in. I heard the sound of the keys clinking the hall, and soon Himitsu entered the kitchen. Nico-kun? She asked, genuinely surprised. You're already up? Yes, and I'm almost done with our breakfast. Take a seat. I pulled up a chair and invited her to sit down. This is so unexpected. Better late than never. You didn't have to. It sounds like you're unhappy about this. She waved her hands and smiled. Eee! No, I'm very happy. It's really tasty. Himitsu tried the eggs. Of course, she was exaggerating, but even I couldn't ruin such a basic dish. And for the dessert, she grabbed some tsukemono with her chopsticks. Thanks for that, by the way. They really helped me yesterday. Glad to hear it, but prevention is the best medicine. So, you're suggesting I drink alcohol regularly to develop an immunity? Nico-kun! She pouted. Easy, that was a joke. From now on, you're going to make breakfast for me every morning. You wish. She laughed sincerely and very cutely. I noticed that I was staring at her too openly. Fine, you can do something else. Like what? Clean up? You wish. I drawled. Or at least not make such a mess. I shall consider your proposition. Do be so kind. Himitsu took my empty plate, but I stopped her. Let me do it. I'll cut you some slack. You've already put in too much effort for today. Well, hypothetically, if I'm going to cook, what will I get in return? We shall see. She smiled slyly. What would you want? I could only think of one thing. I was about to say it out loud when Himitsu accidentally walked into a bag laying on the floor, dropping the plate, which fell and broke into pieces. They say that glass breaks for happiness. Haven't heard that before. It's true, but it's better not to go overboard or we'll have nothing to eat from. Nico-kun, it's all because your house! She kicked the bag up 1/2 meter into the air. It's a total mess. We were taking our usual route to school that we had walked hundreds of or even thousands of times before. And particularly today it seemed the same had it been a year ago. The same as always. Oh my gosh. Catherine's return, the KGB and Kobayashi Corporation. Would it be the same now or 10 years from now? What would happen to us in 10 years? But before I had never considered it. Now I could quite seriously imagine a life together with Himitsu. Earth to Nico-kun. Copy. What were you daydreaming about? About you? What do you mean about me? She asked, puzzled. I've decided that I could eat your borscht for a while longer, unless I get tired of it. Nico-kun! Himitsu grew embarrassed and turned away. You're always joking. I think I'm pretty good at it. Maybe I should be a comedian. Just not a professional clown, I hoped. In the worst sense of the word. Are you sure you're gonna be alright at school? She suddenly changed the subject. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? Well, you haven't been there for a few days now. You don't even know what homework they've been giving. Not that I did homework even when I got it. I'll come up with something. Not that any of the teachers would be actually interested. Of course, they could expel me, but since I had achieved the bare minimum in terms of attendance, and my grades weren't even the worst, it could be that easy, or it wouldn't be. Besides, this wasn't a private school, meaning that it was sponsored by students' parents. You know, I'm lazy, not stupid. Well, sometimes I forget that, looking at you. We came across Himitsu's classmates who greeted her, then crossed to the other side of the road, whispering enthusiastically and occasionally casting meaningful glances over at us. What's the matter with them? Nothing serious, she said, not showing much interest. Who are you and where is my Himitsu? I grabbed her by the shoulders and lightly shook her back and forth. Where had her shyness and embarrassment gone? Nico-kun, stop it! They're discussing you over there, and you seem to not care at all. Well, I guess I just don't anymore. We were approaching the school. Do you want to have lunch there? Together? You made lunch as well? No way, you can't expect that much of me yet. You're counting on my bento, are you? Can't I? She seemed to think a moment. I guess you can today. See you later then. Don't sleep during class. The first person I noticed when I walked into the classroom was Michael. He tore himself away from one of his ever-present looking books and gave me a slight nod. It's not like I hadn't respected him before, but after what he'd done yesterday, that respect grew a little greater. So, did you have a good rest? Kyosuke asked snidely once I sat behind my desk. I did. I feel great. If only everyone could have such a carefree attitude toward life. Doesn't seem hard to me. Yeah, when you don't give a damn about anything. I couldn't understand if Kyosuke was being serious or joking. Since when have you become a moralist? You know, it doesn't feel great to sit here for half a day and spend another half a day doing homework while somebody is having fun. You say that as if someone's making you do it all. Of course they are. Oh, come on. I grinned. I did a big grin. Eee! Like that. Catherine appeared right before the bell and quickly sat behind her desk, paying no attention to me. I said nothing. There was no reason to start a conversation. Classes went as usual, boring and routine. I always found it easier to extract information from books instead of forcing myself to listen to someone. In fact, I'd say schools care more about grades than how useful or practical the knowledge they teach their students is, because grades are the only measure of the quality of education at the moment. You can say a kid is talented or has potential as much as you like, but how can you actually express that potential? Is the kid at 7 out of 10 on the target scale? We had managed to split the atom and start building spaceships, but it seemed to me sometimes that the social sciences lagged further and further behind the technical ones. Perhaps in the future teachers would be replaced with soulless robots, precise, faultless, and emotionless. All-girl class, I know, right? Except for when there's guys in the classroom. There are guys, they're just invisible. They're not there. Just like production lines had replaced menial workers, wouldn't that lead to a future where scholastic production lines produce identical parts for society, parts with no feelings, passion, or ambition, creativity, compassion, or morals? During break, Katya quickly walked out of the classroom, and I headed for lunch with Himitsu. See, told you, there were guys. We sat down in the yard on our favorite bench. A classmate asked me to go to karaoke. Karaoke? Sure, go. Might be a good idea. Don't you want to go with me? Me? Usually she didn't invite me to these events, and didn't often go herself either. Yeah, something wrong? Nothing, just will Saya-chan be there too? I guess so. Himitsu smiled. Aren't you afraid that we might have a fight? I hope you won't start bullying girls. Then we're on unequal grounds. She can bully me. Nobody's bullying you, Nico-kun. Alright if you say so. I was being bullied. I walked back to our classroom and thinking about Catherine. I wondered what she felt about these new circumstances. The excitement of the few days had faded, and we all knew we needed to get on with our lives. First there were emotions, demands, rejection of any compromise, and the inability to think about consequences. And then came the realization that life went on, and everything remained the same. We shouted at each other, broke some dishes, then sat down to have dinner in the 5 square meter kitchen of a Soviet something era apartment. Khrushchev apartment? As we had nowhere else to go. Had 5 floors, were built out of panels or bricks, and had small-size apartments. Cool. It was quite a crude analogy for Japan, but Catherine and I had to, if not the same kitchen, at least spend some time in the same school. Something struck at my chest from inside, and I realized I'd never thought about what would come next, what I would do and feel if everything remained the same. Classes finally ended and I ran out of classroom in anticipation of karaoke. My singing abilities left much to be desired, but at least it would be a change of scenery. Outside, I was met with an unexpected twist. Kagome, standing at my locker. We haven't seen her in a very long time. How did she manage to get there faster than me? We need to talk. I'm in a hurry, actually. It's important. So what did you want to talk about? Not here. I figured I still had some time. Besides, I was interested in what Kagome wanted to talk about. Lead the way. We went to the roof. You could set up an office here. I smirked, but Kagome got to the point immediately. What's going on? What are you talking about? Stop pretending. I know everything. Know what? This tone right off the bat meant it was something serious, at least for her. I know that you're connected to Kobayashi Corporation. Me? The frick you're talking about? I haven't even graduated yet. Kagome clearly wasn't a corporate agent, and she didn't look like she was with the KGB earlier, but her words sent a shiver down my spine. It took considerable effort to remain outwardly calm. Or your parents were. Watch your words. If it really wasn't very polite of her, but I shouted so loudly Kagome shuddered and shrunk back. My parents are dead. I'm sorry, but that doesn't change anything. Doesn't change what? Yes, they work for Kobayashi Corporation, so what? Tens of thousands of people do. You know it's not that simple. What isn't that simple? I raised my voice again. Stop pretending. Look, Iwamura, are you alright in the head? Kagome frowned but kept sticking to her guns. You're lying. It's written on your face. The only thing written on my face is that I don't understand the thing you're talking about. She paused. Maybe you really don't know anything. Then this conversation is over. Hey! I called after her. Of course, Iwamura was a weird girl, but to hear about my parents and Kobayashi Corporation from her? I could have stopped her and interrogated her about everything, but I felt it'd be too much. After all, we were at school. She'd scream, then what? They would definitely believe her over me, whatever she came up with. Rapist, be my guest, serial killer, no problem. Most teachers probably wouldn't even be surprised. Maybe Kagome knew something or was involved somehow, but she clearly didn't pose any threat herself. Besides, Himitsu was waiting for me. It was surprising how, for the past couple of days, thinking about her caused all my other problems to fade into the background. At first, karaoke felt pretty awkward and even tense. I had no issues with Himitsu's other classmates, at least I thought so, but Saya-chan. At first she wouldn't even look at me, but an enclosed space can work miracles. You either need to kill your enemy or learn to coexist with them. After a couple of songs that seemed to come to peace with my presence, didn't have much fun though. I could only think about Kagome's words. What did I know about her? Well, absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, she knew about my parents, about Kobayashi Corporation. Perhaps she was also a victim. This conclusion sounded more logical than any other, so I decided to stick to it and ask her about it openly at first opportunity. When we left karaoke, it was already evening. Time passed so quickly. You can say that again. Saya was walking with us while the others went in another direction. Do you also live nearby? No, I'm going to the station. Alright, it's on the way. I felt a bit awkward around her. After all, my past behavior wasn't exactly up to Japanese standards, but Saya in turn was displaying an open hostility toward me. Maybe because Himitsu was around. Singing isn't my best thing after all. If only I had my bass. I totally agree with you there, Nokin-san. About the bass? About your singing? Well, it's not like you exactly have the greatest voice either. Never claimed to. Enough, both of you. Himitsu laughed. Look who's talking. Your singing is pretty, alright? I'm not even sure whether that was a compliment or an insult. From Nico-kun, it's a compliment. Some girls did indeed sing better than her, but compared to Saya and me, Himitsu sounded like a prima donna. Well, to each their own. Can you really play the bass? Are you really interested? So, is he any good? She turned to Himitsu. Well, say it like it is already. I don't know much about music. My thoughts exactly. She didn't say I'm bad. She didn't say you're good either. So am I bad or am I not? Don't be afraid to upset me. Yeah, tell the truth. Come on, guys. Himitsu begged. Soon we approached the station and bid farewell to Saya. Nico-kun. Himitsu grabbed me by the hand. Ah, like when we were little, and smiled. I didn't say anything, just squeezed her little hand in mine. At the same second, I found myself feeling good, even somehow peaceful. Maybe I hadn't sorted myself out fully, but at this moment, I wanted to be right there, with her. To some extent, I owe a debt of gratitude to Catherine, the KGB, and even Kobayashi Corporation for that. But no, not the corporation. Today has been perfect. Himitsu finally broke the silence. Yeah, it's been nice. I wish we could always have days like this. I sighed. What's the matter, Nico-kun? I was thinking that we used to have a lot of days like this. We just never paid them much attention. But we've never gone to karaoke with people. Not about karaoke. There's even a proverb. Enough of your proverbs. Anyway, it's true. We need to cherish the moment since we can never know when tomorrow will bring. Especially in my case. Mitsu lowered her head. You mean in terms of your circumstances? Yeah, of course. Has anything new happened? No. It was too soon to tell her about my conversation with Kagome. Nothing about her was clear. Do you still think that we're going to be alright? We've been alright so far, which means we've been acting as we should. But if something happens, will you tell me? Of course. No, promise me. Mitsu explained anxiously. I promise. There we go. And don't forget about it. To help you, I need to know everything that happens with you. Shall I provide daily reports for you to sign every evening? Sounds like a great idea. Speaking of that, the evening, today went way too quickly, don't you think? No, although, yeah, maybe. There's a film I wanted to watch on TV. Oh, Niku-kun, I'm sorry, I completely forgot. Tomorrow my father and I are leaving to visit my grandma for the weekend, so tonight I need to pack everything. For the whole weekend? Yes. She replied sadly. So all Saturday and Sunday? Yes. When are you coming back? Monday morning. I see. The thought that Himitsu would leave for 2 entire days made me feel off, even though she used to spend the entire summer at her grandma's while I was melting in stuffy Tokyo. Well, I had gone with her a couple of times, but only for a week. I didn't even know why. Maybe because of some mysterious Japanese tradition or something. Well, okay, bring me back some fruits then. I'll bring a full basket. Also, I wouldn't mind a couple of her nikumans. Japanese name for a Chinese dish, baozi? Steamed pork buns. A typical filled for a nikuman is minced pork with a cabbage, garlic, and ginger. Interesting. Ask her to make some just for you. Alright, then I don't feel that bad about you leaving. What are you going to do? Nothing, I guess. Do you have any suggestions? Well, you can do your homework. Never hurts to improve your grades. I'll think about it. I replied in a serious tone. We approached the house. Himitsu looked cautiously around and kissed me on the lips. Ah! It was so suddenly that I didn't immediately realize what happened, and only when she was a few meters away did I feel blood rushing to my face. Like an 8th grader. Damn it! Mitsu's boldness was even more surprising. See you on Monday. Kissed? Yep. I think she gave me a smooch. See you. I walked into the yard and saw... Kagome, sitting on the porch. It's you again, I exclaimed, and immediately turned around. Luckily, Himitsu had already gone home. We haven't finished. I'd say we never even started, and I don't have any desire to change that. I heard to enter my house, but Kagome stood stubbornly in my way. I'll tell you everything, but you have to hear me out first. Everything about your parents. Hesitated for a while, glancing around and listening to my surroundings. This was some plot. The point of it was beyond my understanding. How did you find out where I live? You think it's that difficult? She smirked. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. The school has files on everyone, and I'm a class rep, meaning I'm a regular visitor to the teacher's room. Is that even legal? I think I'll report you to Kimiyami-sensei. You can report me to the Pope if you want. Just hear me out first. Well, fine. Come in then. I opened the door and invited her to enter. Kagome hesitated a moment, then stepped inside. Do you want something to drink? Tea? Sorry, I don't have coffee. Do you live all alone in a house this big? She completely ignored my hospitality. As you can see, that's not very cost efficient. So, what did you want to talk about? I sat opposite her and looked at her intently. My father used to work at Kobayashi Corporation. In fact, he used to work on the same project as your parents. This project is classified, and I don't really know anything about it. But then they fired him, and my father had to help my grandfather at a restaurant. Such rake ingratitude for such a talented scientist, Gomi said viciously. The details of her family situation didn't interest me much. So what then? A few days ago he was kidnapped by the corporation's people. Why are you so positive they were the corporation's people? Muscled men in black suits barged into the restaurant in the middle of the day and took my father away. Who else could they be? Do you have any business trouble? Maybe debts? No. That got Kagome worked up immediately. Our restaurant may be small, but we do honest business. Honesty is irrelevant in this case. You can be as holy as a hermit and have $1 million in debt. Oh, man. She gave me a dreadful look. What do you know? Hey, this isn't about me at all. You're doing all right, or at least not badly. Kagome finally answered my question properly. Did you try the police? Yes, but they just politely waved me away. Isn't it obvious that they even have the police in their pocket? Maybe, but sorry, I still don't understand. What does your story have to do with me or my parents? They all used to work on this project together. Maybe they were killed because of it. I didn't need Iwamura to tell me that, but decided to keep my mouth shut. It was all very weird, sure, but on the other hand, even the secret project had to have more than 2 people working on it. My parents, Kagome's father, Ichinose, however many more. Maybe the corporation was just trying to eliminate everyone involved. They weren't killed, they died in a car accident. I said uncertainly. Do you really believe that? I'd like to help, but do you know my parents are already dead? So you know nothing? What could I know? I grinned wearily. Besides, what else do you know except what you've told me already? Don't feel good. Take care, Eliza. Recover well, alright? Try and drink, ginger ale. It'll help. It always helps me with everything. Maybe it'll help you too. But be well. Get well soon. Kagome bit her lip and clicked her tongue annoyed. Take you. You're welcome. I'll see you soon, my friend. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't think it matters what you believe. So nobody from the corporation came to you? Never asked you anything? What about you? Don't just repeat the question. Nobody from the corporation. So from somewhere else? For a moment, I even wanted to tell her everything, maybe just to have another ally. However, thinking about it rationally, I had to admit Kagome wouldn't make a good one. She was too unstable. Not that I knew her that well. No. Something tells me you're hiding something. As people in my country say, when something occurs to you too often, you should cross yourself. Do you really think I joke with something that might be related to my parents' death? Would you joke about your father being kidnapped? No, of course not. Sorry. She grew embarrassed and looked away. It's fine. I just can't really tell you anything else. By the way, how do you know about my parents? My father's friend told me everything. Did this friend also work for the project? Iwamura might be useful after all. No, I don't know. He's in danger too, so he didn't tell me much. By the way, the thought had been nagging at me for a while already. What's your father's name? Akira Shinji. Ooh, Akira Shinji. Why? Akira Shinji? Pretty common name. It's nothing. Just wanted to know since you knew my parents. Does the name mean anything to you? To you? Nothing at all. Of course it did. It was the person Ichinose had mentioned to me. But no matter how entertaining or curious this was, I didn't learn anything new in the end. Well, yeah, he used to work on the project. Yeah, he was kidnapped. So what? Ichinose had said he was probably killed already. I looked at Kagome's tense face and couldn't find the courage to tell her that. Not just out of concern for my own safety, but also because I couldn't destroy the last hope she had. I'm sure your father will turn up. How can you possibly be sure about that? Fine, I just wanted to cheer you up. Happy now? Kagome stood up. The best thing you could do would be to give me information. So if you learn anything, let me know right away. Got it? Got it, got it. Got it. I started to the gate and returned to the kitchen. I learned so much from about my parents and life and death recently. As hard as it was to acknowledge, it seemed I hadn't known them at all. At least I hadn't known the truth about their job. Alright, sorry again. I need a drink. Okay. Hopefully I'm good until the end of this stream. According to Catherine, they were suspected of espionage, weren't they? No, I couldn't believe that. I clearly remembered how we left the USSR, even if I had been only a child. When you're 7 years old, it's difficult to comprehend what adults feel and think, even to interpret their facial expressions. But a little person always has some sort of intuition. He or she just knows when something isn't right. And I did. My cold dinner, made from leftovers found in the fridge, seemed even more tastelessly eaten alone. Something hurt in my chest, and I shivered as if cold, although it was pretty warm inside. The reason was obvious to me. I was used to Himitsu always being around, and now I could feel how much I missed her. Aww. Poor Nikolai. The 19th. What do normal people do on the weekends? Go to the countryside, go to the movies or theater, visit amusement parks and bars, meet with their friends? It all seemed distant and impossible to me, although any of the activities on that list could distract me from my dark thoughts and self-depreciation. I didn't even know what occupied a greater portion of my thoughts, the situation with Kobayashi Corporation or my longing for Himitsu. The unresolved problem of Catherine was also tucked away somewhere in there. I woke up late and felt pretty alright, at least physically. The fridge didn't have anything for breakfast. Himitsu usually didn't buy enough groceries to last long term, probably because she didn't want them to spoil, and I wasn't a frequent guest at the store. But that didn't upset me much. I could always drop by the ramen shop. I was about to leave when the phone rang. Hello? Hey, Nick. Hey to you too. Not busy? Not that you could be busy with anything. True enough. What did you want? Mike and I wanted to go to the city center. Visit some shops maybe, play at arcades. Wanna join? Yeah, sure. I replied without giving it much thought. I didn't really have any other options for spending the Saturday, and to be frank, I was glad that he called. Alright, me and the boys hanging out. Kyosuke, with a silly and inappropriate grin, seemed to beam with positivity and optimism. Under different circumstances, it could seem pretty unpleasant, but now his good mood was in line with the situation. Michael was serious and focused as always. So how are you doing? He was looking up at me right in the eye, and it made me feel uncomfortable. I'm alright. And how's Himitsu-chan? Well, I went to visit her grandma. So you've been left all alone? Don't pretend like you care. Damn, Nick, you become so moody. Have I really changed? I asked Michael. Tell me honestly, have I changed at all? He adjusted his glasses with a single precise motion. I wouldn't say so. Come on, Mike. Since Catherine-san returned, our Nick hasn't been himself. He caught my annoyed glance. Not that I'm blaming him. His behavior is understandable. If I was in his place... Oh my gosh. Okay. Enough already, Kyosuke. Michael said calmly, and Kyosuke went silent immediately, lowering his head. Why couldn't he do the same when I said it? Alright, what are we going to do? Well, I have an idea. He rubbed his hands rather ominously. The hours at the arcade flew by. Video games distracted me from my real problems and allowed me to forget the outside world for a time. I wasn't as good as Kyosuke, but I managed to score way higher than Michael on every arcade machine, which was nothing to be proud of. It was like a healthy athlete winning the Paralympic Games. The medal might be gold, but you're still an idiot. The arcade didn't even have medals. By the time we walked outside, the sun was already setting. It would be cool if video games were recognized as an official sport. Give it time, Kyosuke. Give it time. Like soccer? Yeah, then I'd definitely be a champion. Hope I won't live to see the day. I noted phlegmatically. Why? It's also a kind of sport. It requires quick reflexes and training. Kyosuke would spending entire days here, and of course he played pretty well. But he seemed to me that I could have easily beaten him if I spent as much time as he had, playing as he had. More importantly though, I had no desire to. Alright, let's go and eat already. I had a snack at the arcade, but it was time for a proper dinner. We went to a cafe and I ate until my stomach was full. Kyosuke walked out for a phone call, leaving me with Michael. So have you managed to talk to Catherine? Talk about what? To sort out your relationship, so to say. It seemed like that was all we had been doing. We don't have any relationship anymore. Is that so? So you feel nothing for her? I looked at Michael closely, trying to figure out what he was getting at, but his face remained emotionless. Why are you asking? It's just if you two are done, I'd like to know about it. Don't tell me you've got your eye on her. Yes, I've been thinking about that, if you don't mind. He replied without a hint of embarrassment. So, that's how it was. I wasn't even angry, just surprised. Though, to be honest, it felt unpleasant. I doubt there's a person alive who'd like it if his best friend started dating his ex-girlfriend. I wasn't one of those people, at least. What would my answer change? It's important for me to know your opinion. Don't you care about Catherine's? I can ask directly. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that all the ostensibly insensible courtesy and thoughtfulness was, in fact, a disgusting display originating from cowardice rather than concern for a friend. As if by warning me about his intentions, he was trying to exonerate himself of the responsibility for any possible consequences. That's quite a thing to say, bro. To be honest, I didn't expect that. But really, how did I feel about Catherine now? Or what I feel as she started dating Michael? Just a couple of days ago, I'd been able to answer that question easily. But now, after growing dangerously close with Himitsu, so what do you say? None of my business. I can't say anything specific right now. I can't say anything specific. Just go. Go date her. I'll date her eventually. It's just too unexpected. In reality, I couldn't just give up Catherine that easily. It was disgusting to think this was some cowardly sense of possessiveness, like an older child refusing to give up a toy to a younger sibling. Her return was too sudden, so I still don't know how I feel about her. Sorry about that. It's okay, I got you. What are you going to do now? That's difficult for me to say right away too. He smiled a little, but I assure you this will not impact our friendship. Yeah, right. And if you decide you still love her, what's the point if she doesn't love me back? That's another matter. I say it's the same one. In that case, we'd become rivals, except you get a fresh start, you could say. Hey, how are you two doing without me? Gosuke returned and diffused the awkward situation. However, the conversation was far from finished. Ugh, I'm so full. He adjusted his belt and sighed heavily. You should watch your weight. People say obesity will be the disease of the 21st century. Kind of. Fairy tales. I'll be sure by then they'll invent some machine to pump all the fat out. Kind of. Yeah, and you'll be the guy to make it break. We left together. And yet, I was walking home thinking about Michael's words. The last few days I'd spent with Himitsu made me forget about Catherine, but she hadn't disappeared. In fact, she was still living her life. And so she would continue. She'd fall in love, marry, have children, and all of this would happen without me. Are you fat-shaming? No. The future will be fat-shaming, Zero. The future, which is I guess the present day, will fat-shame. For the first time I wondered whether our path was going to part forever. Unsurprisingly, I wanted to distract myself. I was just a few blocks away from my favorite bar, and I remembered Himitsu's note about the dangers of heavy drinking. It wasn't that I felt ashamed of what I hadn't even done yet, but she was objectionably right. I wonder what Catherine was feeling right now. She probably wasn't hanging out with her friends, if she had any at all. Ouch. Was she at home watching TV or reading a book? Doing homework or cleaning? How did she perceive loneliness? Did it impact her as strongly as me? Unfortunately, I couldn't find out. I couldn't go back to ask. Why though? Because Michael had set his sights on her? Ugh! How could I have been so wrong about him? On the other hand, he wasn't guilty of anything. I reached my house and stopped. Old, with dark windows and a sunken porch, it looked almost abandoned. Had I been living out here all alone? That would have been true. After all, Himitsu with her regular cleaning, washing, and cooking was responsible for the lonely atmosphere of the house. Otherwise, the rare blinking light in the bedroom or kitchen would terrify the occasional passerby at night, inspiring ghost stories about the place. These thoughts plus one about Catherine were about to drive me crazy. I wondered if I still had the actress of Himitsu's grandmother written down somewhere. I remembered the house and the surroundings pretty well, but I had absolutely no idea where it was. I managed to find their telephone number pretty quickly. It was in my notebook, as expected. Luckily, the address was written next to it. I grabbed the receiver and had already dialed the number when I suddenly stopped. Of course, I wanted to hear Himitsu's voice, no matter what she was talking about. But the desire to see her in person was even stronger. Obsessive, though, have always been a problem for me. If something pops into my head suddenly, and I can't stop thinking about it, I'm done. No matter what, whether it's about buying something stupid or drinking or seeing Himitsu, of course I knew the idea was stupid. Going to a village hundreds of kilometers from Tokyo at night without even a warning. Problem was that a part of this particular obsessive idea was my desire to surprise her. I wasn't even worried about the fact that it would be a bigger surprise for her father. Well, at least I wasn't going to have some hot nikumas. Flipped through the notebooks and found a taxi number. There was a good chance the trains weren't going there anymore. It was pretty late. Even if they were, it would have taken too long. Meanwhile, I needed to leave this instant, immediately. I phoned for a taxi and they named what I thought was an outrageously high price. My brain was already flooded with dopamine, and I had enough money. The car came at 9 with change. The taxi driver turned out to be a chatterbox, which lifted my spirits, since it distracted me from my inner voice, telling me how this whole thing was the act of a madman. Of course, the best thing I could have done was to stay home and go to sleep, but then I wouldn't have spent the entire night thinking I wanted to go to Himitsu. I wanted to. And that was it. Soon I would have to face the consequences of my actions, but I had no desire to think about that in advance. I told the taxi driver that I was going to visit my girlfriend to surprise her, mentioning we'd been together for a long time. In a way, I wasn't even lying to him. He just smirked and gave me the standard tirade of youth and stupidity. I could imagine how he felt and lived, but I definitely couldn't imagine myself sitting behind the wheel, 12 hours a day, bringing strangers to their destinations, where they had some crucial business. Maybe conversations like this with people you only meet once is some sort of defensive reaction, supposed to protect against monotony and loneliness. Happy families are all alike. Even unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. And in that case, loneliness may just be as personal. When you see famous, successful people on TV, you think they're happy and satisfied with their lives, but you can't even imagine they also suffer from adversity and sorrow, from their own difficulties that don't resemble yours in any way. And it's quite possible that what you consider happiness means nothing to them. I think Yesenin and Hemingway had a lot to say on the topic. Meanwhile, we left Tokyo. The dense city districts gave way to sparse countryside cottages. The autumn felt more prominent here. Woodland and all was all the way across, what was all along the way, dressed in yellow and red. The temperature dropped a few degrees, so I closed the window. Mount Fuji was getting farther and further from us, and soon vanished completely beyond the horizon. The sun had already set and the rain started to drizzle as if unwillingly, drops falling slowly on the windshield. It's such a long way back. The driver sighed. Do you know if there's a place to stay there? Hot Springs, maybe? There's a little town nearby. It was more like a small village. Memory served, it would only take 10 minutes by foot to reach Himitsu's grandmother's house from there. Ooh, this is a nice place. Very old-fashioned. That's where the taxi driver dropped me off. I bid him a warm goodbye and left to look for a hotel. My watch told me it was midnight. A new day was about to start. The town itself hadn't changed at all. Although many years had passed since my last visit, there was nothing surprising about that, though. The long arms of Kobayashi Corporation and those like it were yet to reach out here, yet to build it up with shopping malls, movie houses, and stores filled with useless Chinese junk, and fill each and every square meter with monstrous apartment buildings instead of traditional Japanese houses. In this case, it probably just wasn't profitable. The locals were lucky enough to not have their sleep disturbed. The steady, unbreakable rural Japanese lifestyle that had existed for thousands of years was something I couldn't help but respect. This respect grew even stronger when I compared it to what I considered long outdated social norms and traditions of urban areas, and really post-industrial society in general. Maybe not all the effects of globalization are positive, but there is definitely something useful to it. I soon remembered the way and confidently headed off in the direction of Himitsu's grandmother's house. Nice house. All the houses look quite similar, especially in the dark, but following a gut feeling I managed to find the right one. A copper plate engraved with the words Ito glistened in the moonlight, Hitsumi's father's surname. The plot of land wasn't fenced off from its neighbors, and the garden looked neat, not like the thicket in my yard at all. No, not thickets. I took a few steps down the road and led to the house, expecting memories to spring to mind, but that didn't happen. Yes, everything seemed familiar to me, but my heart didn't skip a beat when I cast a glance at the rakes and the hose, the rickety blinds, and the stones nearly buried in the sand in front of the door. Maybe I just hadn't spent much time here before. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice coming from the yard. I couldn't understand a word, but it was clear that the voice belonged to Himitsu's father. Of course, eavesdropping wasn't a polite thing to do, so I was almost physically drawn closer. Still, it was amazing that out in these small towns, the Japanese didn't worry about their safety. not even bothering to lock their houses. On the other hand, how would you lock a shoji? A door, window, or room divider used in traditional Japanese architecture, consisting of translucent or transparent sheets of paper on a lattice frame. Yeah, I want a door, not that. On the other hand, how would a shoji with a bolt? The door to the yard was open. I crept up as quietly as I could and looked inside. Ryunosuke-san was standing half turned away from me, talking on the phone. "You're back! Hey, Mafia babe. We're visiting Himitsu in the countryside. So, yay." Yes. He was clearly worried and perhaps frustrated. "Problems at work?" "I'm telling you, everything is going fine, all according to plan." "Yes, no. Anoken is under my surveillance 24 hours a day, I assure you." Uh-oh. Anoken? Me then? So what? I have my own life. My daughter has been handling the mission well. Oh no. What did you miss? I saw... What's her name again? Kagome, I think her name is. But now this is happening. I think something's going on. His daughter? Himitsu? Outdoor surveillance isn't even my responsibility. Yes, no. Yes, Anokin has been behaving normally as always. What? Russians? Of course I saw their agents, but it was to be expected. No, they haven't done anything yet. Our clients? He smirked briefly, emphasizing the word client. No, everything's quiet for the time being. Sure, I find it strange too, but we can only observe for now. He went silent for a while. Apparently his mysterious interlocutor was talking. You have no reason to doubt Himitsu. She knows everything about his life, probably even more than he does. And that was the truth, which hurt me even deeper. So suddenly, I noticed large beads of cold sweat falling to the ground, and my heart began beating so loudly that Ryunosuke-san would soon hear it. But I kept standing still, trying not to breathe, listening to the conversation. This is the first year I've been monitoring the Anoken family, and if I'm allowed to say, it's always easier. No, I don't think so. Yes. Of course there are results. His contacts with the KGB? Listen, you, it would be an international scandal. We can't just... Another pause. Hasty action may lead to the opposite result. Listen to me. Yes, I got it. Goodbye. Ryunosuke-san hung up and let out a sigh. Hoped he wasn't about to go outside for a smoke, because I didn't feel like I had the strength to take even a single step. Fortunately, Himitsu's father closed the door, and the house soon fell silent. Quickly! I mumbled, sneaking through the garden. Sure, Ryunosuke hadn't noticed me, and I had nothing to be afraid of, really, but I couldn't force myself to stay there a second longer. The further I could be from there, the better. Once I found the road, I broke into a run. I only came to my senses on the street of that little town the taxi driver had dropped me on. I have been under his surveillance? For how long? Himitsu? As if Kobayashi Corporation, the KGB, Catherine and her mother weren't enough, but now that too? But how is Himitsu connected to all of this? So Ryunosuke-san was working for the corporation? Or maybe for Japanese intelligence? He mentioned an international scandal. Things like that would concern someone working for the government. Probably could have taken it if he hadn't mentioned Himitsu. I'd come here because of her. In spite of everything, forgetting all about all social norms and manners, I wanted to see her, hear her voice, maybe kiss her. Handling her mission? It was just a mission for her? Since when? Since childhood? No, I simply cannot believe that for all this time. All these years, Himitsu had been lying to me in cold blood. It was impossible. Anyone but her. God damn it, isn't there a single person in my life who doesn't end up wanting me dead? I wearily sunk to the ground, leaning against the wall of a house. What could I do now? How could I live? I've been holding on to Himitsu as the only normal part of my life. She was the only person who was completely honest with me. These words made the weight on my heart even greater. I bit my lip until it bled. How could I look her in the eye after that? Her big green eyes that seemed like they could have never lied to me. Thick fog was descending upon the town from the surrounding mountains. Less lights went off in the windows, and a piercing wind started to blow from the north. Oh my gosh. Poor Nick. I know. Even Himitsu is, in on this stuff. I closed my light denim jacket tighter, but it didn't help much. Maybe I could look for a hotel. There had to be one here. But first I needed to go to the railway station. The first train to Tokyo was leaving at 4 in the morning, so I didn't have long to wait. I was starving and wanted to sleep. I got lucky and a compassionate station keeper poured me a cup of tea and gave me a couple onigiri, without even asking what I was doing there so late and all alone. Japanese food made from white rice, formed into triangular or cylindrical shapes and often wrapped in nori, dried edible seaweed. Dried, yeah, that's not how you spell that. That sounds like something I would eat, though. Maybe, probably would eat. Hope that at least he wasn't an agent of a secret service. It was a stupid idea. Why had I gone at all? But in scolding myself, I came face to face with that old dilemma. What is better, to live a peaceful lie or learn the bitter truth? If I were to try and analyze Himitsu's father's words without any emotion, which naturally I couldn't do, I'd come to the conclusion that he was just there to observe me. But whoever he was talking with wasn't satisfied with the results. What kind of clients did they have? Americans? Catherine? What, was she watching me too? It would easily explain her sudden return. Although if Himitsu was handling her mission well, being around me at all times, Catherine had chosen a very unorthodox means of surveillance, trying to avoid her subjects as much as possible. The first timid, still cold rays of the rising sun started to appear in the east, reminding me that I wasn't stuck in this town forever. But I had nothing good waiting for me in Tokyo either, or anywhere else, and with no one. The train arrives almost empty, and I was the only person to enter it on this station. The town was probably too far from the capital, or was just too early. With 3 hours till arrival, I closed my eyes and fell asleep at once. Woke up about 2 minutes before reaching my station. When I walked outside, I rubbed my eyes and stretched. I still felt disgusting, feeling more tired than before. Definitely needed a good proper sleep. I barely reached home and tumbled into bed. Questions answered: Catherine and her mother, Himitsu and her father, the corporation and the KGB. I could deal with all that later. Well, this is something, guys. We'll see what happens now, huh? The whistle of a kettle boiling in the kitchen woke me up. Then I heard Himitsu's voice as she hummed a song. That's how my mornings often began, and there was nothing unusual about this one. Besides, Himitsu had said she'd be back on Monday. Even after yesterday, I couldn't force myself to be afraid of her. I pulled on an old, terribly stretched out t-shirt, pulled up my street jeans, and walked into the kitchen. Hi, Himitsu. Are you working as an agent? Nico-kun, why did you go to sleep in the afternoon? I glanced at the clock. It was nearly 8 in the evening. Well, your afternoon is someone's morning. Why are you back so early? Was expecting you tomorrow. Were you waiting for me? She perked up, then realized it looked strange. Dad has had some urgent business in Tokyo. Dad, huh? Urgent business? I slowly sat behind the table and looked out into the garden. I really did need to put in order. On the other hand, winter was coming soon. All the unwanted plants were going to die anyway. Same as the good ones, though. Why are you so gloomy? Not even sure. Got reasons. I avoided Himitsu's questioning look and started with the food. In the end, I found it hard to look her in the eye. Thinking about it, she's basically been interrogating me the other day. Promised to tell me everything, Nico-kun. I've been looking for enemies everywhere I could, and all along my main enemy had been hiding right by my side. Despite that, I didn't want to believe that she was that good an actor. That's why you shouldn't sleep in the afternoon. I went to bed late, or early at that point. And now you're going to stay up the whole night? Or stay up the whole night. In reality, I didn't feel rested at all, and was ready to sleep for another 5 or 6 hours. I won't, or maybe I will. Of course everybody lies, especially Catherine. Why did I remember her at this moment? On the other hand, Katya never explicitly told untruths. She was, however, a master of lying by omission, and she was very good at justifying her behavior and making herself out to be right regardless of the circumstances. I wondered how Himitsu would behave in a similar situation. Went to your village yesterday. What? She stopped cutting her vegetables immediately, knife hanging in midair. It was at night. You were probably asleep by then. An idiotic smile froze over my face. Nico-kun, what are you saying? Wanted to surprise you. I realized it was inappropriate, but still. A very weird choice of words in the first place. Why inappropriate instead of say stupid? A dirty joke can be inappropriate when told at an official event. My visit, meanwhile, was unexpected, but more than appropriate, even if improbable. Then why didn't you drop by? She looked genuinely surprised. Specifically surprised, not frightened. Which was a good thing, for sure, because I accidentally eavesdropped on your father talking on the phone. I deliberately paused and looked at her right in the eye, but Himitsu's inscrutable face kept an expression of genuine surprise. It was nice to learn that you guys have been long monitoring the Anokin family, that you have been handling the mission well. He said a lot of interesting stuff in general. Nico-kun. Fortunately, she put the knife away. I'm just telling you what I heard, and for what's going on, you should be the one to explain that. Even if my father did something like that, I don't know. Finally, her lips trembled and Himitsu turned away. She was incapable of lying after all, and at least at critical moments. I can't believe that you're involved somehow. My words sounded calm, as if we were discussing school, and not the fact that her father had been spying on my family for years, had been spying on my family, and was now spying on me. So if you tell me you have nothing to do with it, I'll believe you. But Himitsu remained silent. So it's all true? No! She shouted through herself to me and looked at me with pleading eyes. Nico-kun, I'm sorry! It's hard to look at her, hear her crying and remain composed, pretend that it didn't bother me in the slightest. So is it no or sorry? I needed to know the truth. Mitsu kept crying with her head on my knees. No matter what, at that moment she was sincere. How long? How long have you known? Dad told me just a few days ago. She wiped her tears, stood up, moved the chair over, and sat next to me. That in truth he works for Japanese intelligence, that he is monitoring you and used to monitor your parents. But all this... Mitsu was about to fall to tears again, so I had to grab her by the hand. Only then did she manage to calm down. But he's been doing all this to protect you. He told me that you're in danger, and no matter what, I shouldn't tell you anything, because that would only make things worse for everyone. I just wanted to do what's best for you. At least she clearly believed what she was saying. I had no doubts about that. I wasn't going to betray you. Adding the truth isn't the best way to not betray me. Nico-kun, forgive me. When did it all start? 2 or 3 days ago, maybe. I'm asking about your father. Since when has he been spying on us? Since we came to Japan? I don't know, but... She paused. But what? That's not all of it? I flung my arms up in the air and sighed heavily. Himitsu virtually shrunk into herself. Alright, don't torment me. Say it. Well, he showed interest in a relationship before too, and I... got to stretch. Oh my gosh. I gotta exercise more. She forced herself to continue, and I told him a lot. Nothing important, though. Just some daily minor stuff. He's my father, after all. But you have to understand, I don't know anything. I wasn't doing it on purpose. Nico-kun? I remained silent. I just didn't know what to say or how to react to her confession. Deep inside, I probably was ready to believe her. But is remorse always sufficient for redemption, for forgiveness? Is forgiveness that important after all? I wasn't the one to judge Himitsu for her sins, but I had to live with her somehow. I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't push her away forever. Nico-kun, say something. How much did you tell him? Everything I knew. But he's only trying to help and protect you. Us. I'd like to believe that. I smirked sadly and stood up. My legs had become terribly numb for some reason. I had to make a few rounds of the kitchen. I don't blame you for trusting him. Nico-kun? Himitsu kept going, which started to irritate me. At the moment, I needed something constructive, not her whining. I need to think. She looked at me with hope in her eyes, but immediately realized that I was going to think alone. Alright, see you tomorrow then? Yeah. I replied absent-mindedly. Even my relationship with Catherine was simpler in many respects, because I could expect anything from her, but there were things I would never have expected Himitsu of. It wasn't even about whether I could forgive her, what was important was whether I could be sure that she wouldn't pull another trick like this in the future, because forgiveness and meekness are easy to get used to, and then eventually you lose your self-respect, and what you thought was unacceptable before becomes quite permissible. God, if only it was someone else in her place. Someone I'd expect such twists from. Catherine. Yes, that would be likely. A phone call woke the house after it had just slipped into slumber. Jumped up, following by a myriad of dust particles, as they danced in the dim light of the kitchen lamp. Hello? Hi, you're not asleep? It's too early for that. Speak of the devil. What do you want? Just a second ago I'd been thinking about her, but over the past 2 days I'd realized that the Catherine in my mind and the one I was talking to now, weren't the same person. Shall we meet? Why would we? Do you need a special reason? I guess I do. Well, let's say I miss you. This is a bad time for jokes, Katya. What if I'm not joking? How would you know? Okay, alright. Where? I don't care. Then, in the park, in the bar. Let's see what the park looks like at nighttime. You go to the park, you are robbed and killed by a mugger. The end. Woo! Let's meet in the park. Just wanted to get some fresh air. Okay, see you in an hour, she said, and not waiting for my reply, hung up. Damn it, this is just wonderful. What if I were to tell her everything about Himitsu, her father, Ichinose? I really needed someone I could trust. Or I just wanted somebody to hear me out. Someone to get this off my chest to. And since I wasn't sure if Himitsu could be that person, on the other hand, it was clearly dangerous. Ooh, look at the park at night, Mafia babe. The little lanterns. I reached the meeting point in 40 minutes, and to my surprise, Catherine had come early as well. We sat on a bench. You're early today. So are you. I don't want to disappoint you, but arriving early is normal. What did you want to talk about? I wanted to say that we should have a fresh start. What do you mean? I was startled and even moved away from her a bit. It may sound silly, but I've been thinking a lot, and I realized that you're right. After all, we still need to study together. I couldn't remember myself saying anything like that. So pretty. It is pretty. At least not wording it that way. So you want to remain friends? Catherine smirked. I guess we've never really been friends. Our relationship deepened right away. Who's pretty? The park is pretty. And Caroline is pretty. Or Catherine is pretty. Who's Caroline? What? But we can do everything right this time. By saying right, you're implying the wrong. It was wrong before. I hope each of us can draw conclusions on that ourselves. In a sense, I'm happy to hear it from her, I guess. At least now I'll be able to think less about Catherine, because I definitely had more urgent issues at hand. Even disregarding the gravity of each one of them, the situation with my parents, past and hid, and mine, oh my gosh, I can't read anymore. And my and Hitsumi's present was way more important than my feelings for Katya, because there was a good chance that I would not have a future to sort these feelings out in. If it's fine by you, I wouldn't make it the offer otherwise. Is it fine by you, though? Catherine's very pretty. She is. I can live with it. Catherine gave me a piercing look, and for a second I could see a shadow of irritation across her face. She probably wanted to figure out what I was thinking about. No wonder. I was just way too tired and couldn't be bothered with facial expressions. Well then, she said seriously. Should we shake hands too? Why not? Katya reached out, and I shook her hand without hesitation. Well, we have a deal then. By the way, how's Himitsu? She's a spy. Why? I put myself on guard right away. You become too distrustful. Why do you think that? Because it's obvious. She threw her hands up. I have good reasons to be, don't you think? Yeah? What reasons? Well, I don't know. I replied sarcastically. Some notes for one. We've already discussed that. Why do you all think that having a discussion changes anything? That words can fix actions. Who is we? Just all of you. In this case, going on like that will drive you mad. You might not believe it, but I'm worried about you too. That's to some extent. Catherine specified immediately, so my question about Himitsu is quite appropriate. She's okay, she's doing fine. I replied briefly, I wish that was the case. You can talk to her yourself, for example. Tomorrow at school, will you be there? I will. The conversation seemed to wither away on its own. We seemed to have signed a peace treaty, but had no idea what to do now. I wanted and had an opportunity to take a break from my inner turmoil over her, but the whole conversation felt like some weird formality, like a military dispatch about a ceasefire. By the time the news reached all the soldiers in the trenches, a dozen would have been torn apart by shrapnel. It was Katya's turn to break the silence. All right then. How are you doing, by the way? Fine. She smiled a bit unnaturally, as it seemed to me. That's what you expected to hear, right? I really don't have much to tell, though. Well, I bought a calendar and have been crossing the days off with a big red marker. Days left before the end of the school year? Exactly. Does it help? I don't know yet. Silence descended upon us again. Well, I have to go. Yeah, see you. I said as if I was saying goodbye to Kyosuke, not her. It was nearing midnight. The conversation with Catherine had calmed me down a bit. Whatever Miss Winters had on her mind, I doubted she'd put her own daughter in harm's way, if only by letting her communicate with me. In that regard, the Americans were still ahead of the Japanese. Since when had my life become this ridiculous baseball match with me, as the ball being tossed back and forth between opposing teams? The light was on in the windows, and I immediately knew it was Himitsu. She was used to finishing what she started. If I hadn't forgiven her earlier, I definitely had to forgive her now. That's what she thought. That's what mattered to her. Threadbare forgiveness. I don't know if it's because of my upbringing or something else, but I always thought this behavior was like expecting praise from a shogun, a commander-in-chief of the expeditionary force against the barbarians, title of the military dictators of Japan, during most of the period spanning from 1185, 1868, normally appointed by the emperor who held no real power. Shoguns were usually the de facto rulers of the country. Cool. Or in our case, expecting clemency. To some extent, the situation wasn't that hopeless. The death penalty couldn't resurrect a killer's victims, but a relationship can be fixed, and trust can be regained, at least in theory. I wasn't sure I was ready for that. You. Nico-kun, I'm sorry I'm here. I know you wanted to be alone. On the other hand, while I was deciding how to live from here on, I could take her keys. Although I had nothing to hide at home, except for some dusty corners, an empty fridge, and an open bottle of whiskey in the cupboard. I would be more surprised if you weren't here. Hey! She was about to get annoyed, but quickly caught herself. I told you you wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. So you won't ask me where I was? No, I shouldn't provoke her anymore. Whatever the case, I wasn't going to tell her that I met with Catherine, and if Himitsu didn't ask first, there was no need to bring it up. Didn't make dinner? It's not healthy to eat at night. It's not healthy if you're going to sleep, but you just said I won't be. But it seemed her logic circuits have overloaded. Alright, relax, that was a joke. I took out a new pack of tea, opened it, and put a teapot on the stove. In fact, I'm glad you came. Really? She asked us distrustfully. Now when you've calmed down a bit, we can talk normally. You have calmed down, haven't you? I asked, and Anne looked at Himitsu. She was sitting fidgeting with a napkin, and seemed to avoid looking at me. What do you want to talk about? About your father. Do you have a more important topic? But Nico-kun, I don't know anything except about what I've already told you. I wasn't going to spy on you. You need to understand that I'm a victim here too. Her excuses were poor, and even, although it was hard to acknowledge even to myself, revolting. Of course, Himitsu wasn't a pathological liar, wasn't a, but now she was behaving like a little child who wouldn't admit her guilt even caught red-handed trying to take a box of cookies from the cupboard. Let's say I agree that you're not guilty. Will you tell me what you know? But I'm really not. She sighed, apparently realizing what I wanted from her. Think about it yourself. Why would Dad tell me anything? I don't know. More than that, I couldn't understand how he could drag his own daughter into all this. Maybe it's more about you than your father. Why didn't you tell me everything right away? Because would all be worse off. Exhausted Psyche couldn't withstand another crying fit. Quickly grabbed the mugs and put one of them in front of her. With chamomile as you like. Thank you! Mitsu looked surprised. There was no real reason for that, though. I had always had a fine selection of teas. Mostly because of her, but I had also brought some myself. I think with this screen here, I'm going to save the game here, guys, and we will continue even more next time. We're getting along with the story, everyone. Let's see the main menu again. Let's see everything that we have unlocked so far. What do you think, guys? Is it still good? Is the game still good? Backgrounds. Even more has been unlocked. Yay! Woo! And this stuff. Yep, a little bit more. Not too much more. Well, okay, there's a lot more still. Alright, guys, but I'm gonna call it here. Thank you all very much for stopping by. I'm still liking this game. I don't know what you guys think about this game, but I'm liking it a lot. But don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow. Chrono Cross will be tonight. God, wish me luck with that game, guys. You loves it a lot. That's good. Well, thank you for coming, everyone. It's always good to see ya, and I'll see all of you later. Bye.